Welcome to Critique My Customs. This is Brock. I'm your host. And with me today, I got a couple of folks with me to critique these customs. And I'm really excited because one of these guys made us wait. Fashionably late. First, let me introduce right in the middle of your screen, Weapon X Customs. What's up, player?
How's it going, everybody?
He's from Canada. Canada, eh?
Yes, sir. Just outside the Western Canadian Rocky Mountains.
Very nice. And to his right, we have Markai Lab Creations, a.k.a. Brock's brother. What?
Twin. Yeah, long lost brother.
That is an awesome stash. How long did it take you to grow?
Damn. It feels like decades. I mean, I ordered it Friday. Man, it was your Sunday, to be honest. That Amazon Prime, they don't mess around. So,
no, they don't. Yeah.
With the goatee, I don't have to order it separately or anything.
That's looking really fantastic. And of course, everybody here has facial hair, and we're happy to be here. For those of you that are just new to the channel, I'm not sure if anybody is new to the channel. We got about 25 people joining us live. Welcome. I will be able to moderate the chat in a little bit, but what we're doing here is we have a couple of experienced customizers with me today, and what I've been looking to do is to assist newer customizers, because I do get a lot of questions. I'm sure these guys get a ton of questions. Nice. Justin's moving his facial hair up to his forehead. That's awesome. And we want to give you advice. So what I started was a new hashtag. It's called Critique My Customs, the name of the show. And if you entered that hashtag, we're going to critique your customs. Hopefully it's going to be something that is good for you to use, as well as some other newbies that may be, lurking in the background that maybe didn't want to submit their custom. But the whole spirit of this is not to make fun of people or anything like that, but it's really just to have a critical eye of some of the things that we'd be interested in doing. And trust me, no one here is perfect. We all still have a lot to learn. Matter of fact, Weapon X Customs, how many customs do you think that you've done total?
Probably 35, 40. I've done a bunch of repaints, a couple of sculpting customs, but yeah, probably about 30 or 40, somewhere between that.
Very good. And you're not a trained artist, correct?
No.
Right.
So watched a lot of YouTube videos, harassed a lot of customizers, the same as a lot of people now, thankfully do to me. And learned that way. Just learned by watching people on Instagram, on YouTube, and picked it up from there.
Yeah, very good. And how about you, Markai Lab Creations? How many customs do you think you've done?
I just want to say, if anybody noticed me laughing, I wasn't laughing at the number of customs that you said you completed. I was laughing because you said a boat, and it just hits me where I live. Hits me where I live. Okay. Anyways, totally. How many customs have I done?
Yes.
That's a hard question, because I just kind of make things, and so a lot of people try to, they can count them by how many they've done for somebody else, and I just make things all the time, hundreds maybe. But a lot of those are failed customs, so nobody should be like, oh, 100 customs. But a lot of them were just, I have buckets of total fails where they're just mashed together. The paint solidified the joints, and I tried to sculpt something and it looked just awful. So yeah. How many completed customs? I don't know. Maybe as many.
Wow.
Probably a lot.
So
less.
behind you is your workspace. Is that customs that you're currently working on, or what do you got going on back there?
Kind of. It's kind of a hodgepodge of different things. I like to look at things while I work, so I like to keep I rotate kind of stuff in the background so I can just look at parts and pieces and mash stuff together. But
okay.
Some of the stuff that kind of populates the upper shelves, that's projects that are in process or just put off to the side. Basically, it's it's just I running out of shelf space. That's just
sure everybody's problem.
Places for me to put stuff. Yeah.
Well, and I just wanted to tell everybody that's going to be watching live, and everybody that will watch later, we're not coming from a spirit of superiority. We are just coming from, a little bit more experience than some of these newer customizers at. there may be something, an aspect of customizing that a new customizer may be even able to do better than we can, because they're a trained artist or a sculptor and they've been doing that for years, and then they're just using this as a different medium, artistic outlet for them. And again, this is just supposed to be instructional. Why don't we get going? I have about 15 customs. We may do a little bit of rapid fire round. Some of them we may, land and talk a little bit more than others, but it'll depend on what customs and how far along in their customs they submit it. So let me do a little screen share real quick and get going on this right now. Let me know when you see Crocodile Dundee on the screen.
I see it.
All right, very good. So this is going to be a custom that was actually I just featured. We're going to come back to that video. I just want to show you guys.
You're going to do your knife thing again? Because that was a great.
That was a horrific accent. That's not a knife. This is a knife.
No, it was all right. Yeah, it was good. It was good. I bet Christina Conan on the other side was probably like, good try.
If she watched that part, she probably died. So this is where he got or at least this was where he started from, and then we'll work our way back. So it looks like here he's removing the hairpiece and he's going to sculpt over. But let's, you guys just go ahead and start commenting away whatever you see. Oh my gosh, there's music. How do I stop that music? How do I kill that music? Oh, well, hopefully it's not copyrighted.
I'll let Justin dive in on this one first.
Go for it, Justin. What do you?
Oh, I think he's gone. Never mind.
Justin's gone?
I think he's gone. So
okay.
I guess I'll talk about it.
Well, let's just jump right in. One of the things, first of all, I had a really good impression of this custom. I think it looks pretty darn good. I think he definitely nailed the aspect of the character. One of the things that I would say, depending on what look you're going for, and this could be artistic preference, but it could be, you see the skin tone right here. I don't even know if that's painted at all. I think one of the things that you could have done to improve this custom is that you could have done like a Pimp My Custom video that I did of Hercules. I think you could add just by adding a wash. I think you could be you're good by the skin tone.
Justin's back, by the way.
Go ahead, jump in, Weapon X.
No, I love it. It's like I told you earlier, it's a unique custom that nobody else is going to be able to say that they've got one. It's a very clever use of parts. I absolutely love what he did for the hat and the jacket. And a sign of a good custom, I always say, is if you're able to look at it and without having the customizer tell you who it is, you're able to right off the bat go, yeah, that's Crocodile Dundee. So I love it. Absolutely love it. I agree with you, though. I wish that he did put a wash on those arms just so that the paints did match, because now that I look at it, looks like he might have used different arms than the torso, and it looks a little bit off, but might just be my eyes.
Right.
But yeah, I love it. I think it's such a cool custom, and I think he did a great job. He nailed it.
Very good. Justin, so we were talking about just the flesh tone right here. It looked like he may have, I'm not sure if he painted that at all. So we were just talking about that if he would have added a wash, and I was going to say maybe highlighting some shadows. If he would have pimped up the skin, it would have, came out better.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. It's it's kind of hard to tell. I was trying to, when I tried to blow up the phone just a second ago and everything fell off the table, I was trying to get a better look at it. Because my is it really small for everybody else? Like on my screen, it's super tiny. I've got a giant blue box that says I'm in the show, but then like the actual picture is real small.
Because you're on a mobile phone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's big on my end. That's what she said.
Right.
So is it hard for you to critique this because you can't see it?
I'm gonna pull it up on the computer real quick so I can look at it at the same time. No, it's not hard. I think that the reason that we picked this specifically was the fact that it was like Weapon X said, it's totally outside of the box, but you immediately recognize it. I mean, you don't even have to. You could have done even your spot on impersonation of that's not a knife, we were able to get it regardless. So I think he did a great job, but I think you're right. I think that I think it kind of depends. He kind of mixed two different styles. I think he did a couple different techniques on the vest, because I recognize the vest from a different from the cap. The
he got
a cap, right?
Yeah, I think this is
Stone
what
Cold
the
Steve
vest
Austin.
was.
From a wrestling figure.
Yeah, and he cut out this material, and I think he covered this jacket with the material, which is hopefully that's for PETA advocates, that's going to be a faux crocodile skin. Okay.
Totally. Nothing but fake crocodiles died in the making of this action figure. Yeah, well, that's incorrected. It looks completely different. I recognize it, but no, it looks great. But it looks like so he has, like I said, it looks like he went with a realistic finish for the vest, but then, like I said, he doesn't have a realistic finish for the arms. But it doesn't detract from the overall custom. I think the custom is great itself. Just that would be something. I think a lot of people don't like to mess with skin tones,
right?
So I don't blame them for putting it together and then saying this looks good for me, because looking at it from where I'm looking at it, it looks great. So.
Yeah, it's some of the and a lot of the stuff that maybe we say is going to be what preference. One of the things that I did notice, though, when you're looking at the teeth, I think the teeth on the hat, I think they didn't come out bad at all, but I think with a little bit more, I don't know, is that what crocodile teeth look like? What I would have done, I would have brought up like an actual crocodile, and I would have tried to emulate. To me, it looks a little bit rough, but that may be how the crocodile teeth, and it just may be my lack of knowledge. But and I'm not a great sculptor by any means. Like you look at the band on his forearm, I think that band could be smoothed over. And what are some of the things that you guys use when sculpting, for example, to smooth over your sculpt?
Well, I traditionally work with Milliput and Procreate. I recently heard that Procreate you can use a lot more efficiently if you use rubbing alcohol, but I've gotten away with using water. But just constantly using water, constantly making sure that it's smooth, constantly making sure that you're not leaving a fingerprint or anything like that. But for those teeth, I wish you would have sculpted them individually with like a Procreate or something like that. Sculpt like 20 or 30, take your best looking ones, and then glue them on after the fact.
Any comment on that, Justin?
I think we just lost him.
Oh, Justin's popped out. He's having. All right, well, let's move on. Hopefully that critique, we're having some technical difficulties. Justin's going to owe some push-ups at the end of the show. Let's move on to the next custom. This next custom was from Lumple Knot, and he's making a devil dinosaur, which I thought it's actually pretty cool.
I think it's such an awesome figure. On the horns, I wish he would have done a little bit more work to smooth it out. And maybe you see on the dinosaur skin there, especially along the nose, he's got that ridging, and just, making small little sculpted balls and adding them on just to add that, consistent texture, the consistent details. But yeah, just spend a little bit more time smoothing those out, blending those in a little bit more. But as far as the paint goes, I think the paint looks great.
Yeah, I thought the paint was pretty good. Now I look down here, and again, this just could be a preference. I like and I'm having trouble like seeing if he did or not, because maybe he did a little bit on the nails, like the bed of the nails.
Yeah,
I think if you made that a little bit darker, closer to his claw, what do you call those, talons? What are we supposed to call these things? Let me see if I can get a better picture.
I'm sure some paleontologist will come in and correct you.
Well, Joey is in the chat. Joey, what do we call these things? Put it down for us. Here, Mark I Lab is making his way back. Hold on, let me add him to the stream.
Hey,
so
everyone.
I think 20 push-ups for every time you have to bail out on us.
Do we want to have Justin just talk about this while we have him?
Yeah, why not? Why don't you jump in? I was just talking about specifically his nails. His nails that I think that I would have liked to have seen, or if I was doing it, I would have done something darker. And you can see an example of what I mean if you go back to my Beast repaint, and I have a couple of videos out on that. Go back and see how I made it dirtier in the closer to the bed of the nail, to the inside, closer to the fleshy part.
Yeah.
I would have darkened that up.
Yeah.
Another thing that I think, I kind of want to use this figure too, but I haven't found him cheap enough. He's still at $50 at my Target.
That's my conundrum too.
Yeah, it's just too expensive. But what I would have liked to have seen, since you're doing a full paint and it overall looks great, I would have liked to have seen you work on the teeth, the actual teeth of the dinosaur, and make them sharper. Again, what I would have tried to do is I would have pulled up a picture of, some sort of lizard or dinosaur from the movies Jurassic Park or whatever, and I would have tried to make the teeth sharpness, follow that dinosaur. Obviously, right here is a kid's toy, so they're making it. They have safety regulations or whatever.
Yeah. Specific limitations.
Any comments on this?
I know what you're saying. I've got that figure. I've worked with it a couple times, and the teeth they're made kind of one dimension, but it's one thin sheet of plastic that goes all the way around. And unless you cut them out, resculpt them, it's a pain in the butt. It's kind of hard to. It's kind of hard to really sharpen them without doing a whole lot of work into it. I'm trying to pull up a picture. So I agree with the toenails. I would have gone with a wash, some kind of finish that would have matched the. I think they did a great job on the skin tone.
Yeah.
Especially with reds. I love it when people do really deep red and make it multifaceted like that. So it looks really nice, but then you look down and it looks kind of unfinished.
Yeah.
Right.
It goes from detailed to just kind of factory all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. It's got just kind of an opaque finish. Would have, and that's all some great lines in it. And if you would have sunk,
yeah, I think and he says he's finished, but maybe after he watches the show, adding a wash is super easy, barely an inconvenience. You could use if you're not familiar, if you don't know how to make a wash, and based on your paint, you probably do know how to make a wash. Just looking at the skill level as far as the paint goes, but you can use Citadel products, and they have several washes that I like. Agrax Earthshade a lot, and I think it's an earthy tone that you could use for the bed of the nails, or the nail, dirty up the nail a little bit. It's actually like a discoloration. If you just look at your own fingers and you look at your own nail, your nail's going to be different colors. And but again, what I would do is I would bring up an actual picture of a lizard, what do you call those? A bearded dragon or something from nature that you could actually pay attention and then you can emulate. It looks like we've just we've lost Mark Highland Creations again. All right, we're gonna move on. This is actually it's worse than Ace Outlaw Customs last week. All right, we're gonna move on to the next custom. And the next custom is going to be from Nerd Scum. He was actually one of the first entries. I'm going to let this play. Go for it.
Is he using an Iron Man helmet? Because I know it's Red Hood. I'm not super familiar. I apologize. I'm not a DC guy, but I know it's Red Hood just by looking at it.
Correct. Yeah, I'm not sure. Let me see. He does show what he is using. Yeah, that is an Iron Man helmet.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just bringing up the tag right here.
Yeah, he's using a Paladin. He used a Paladin body. One of the things that I would tell you right off, and again, I'm probably going to repeat myself and say it's a preference thing. Oh, Justin's back. Dude. So it's a preference thing. And anytime that I see like soft goods, and the soft goods look good, it looks like you probably bought that on like GP slot or GPS lot. I like to treat the cloth, meaning put some form, like put something on, like paint wise. You can, I would take, you could do a wash on that jacket. I would take an airbrush. I'm not sure if you have an airbrush or not, but I would take different browns on that jacket and, shade it and highlight it. And I think it looks a lot better. I think that's one of the things that I think I've mentioned it before, Mesco products. Everybody loves the Mesco products, but when you look at their jackets, their cloth goods, for me, in my taste, there's something missing, and the missing is the treatment. I heard there's a customizer, very popular customizer back in the day, Spawn Saws. He made a who's the Watchman, the guy Rorschach.
Okay.
He made an unbelievable Rorschach, and that's what he talks about. He talks about treating his jacket, and his jacket looked exponentially better than anything Mesco put out. And it's just simply for that detail that, first of all, his sewing was super on point, but the washes that he added were great, and highlights, etc.
See, I'm really impartial to the soft goods stuff, because to me, it's either you're walking back to the dugout after a strikeout or a home run. It's either just beyond hit or beyond miss, and that's the one thing I don't like about it is there's no middle ground, there's no consistency. It's either fantastic or it's awful. And I know the Black Series does it. Marvel Legends, thank God, does not do it. But I absolutely agree. I think the jacket looks way too brand new for what some guy who's running around murdering people at night would wear. But I think it's super unique choice of parts. I really enjoy that Paladin buck. I wish he would have put some sculpting into that Iron Man head just to smooth it out a little bit more and differentiate it from the Iron Man head. But I really like it. And again, it's one of those unique ideas. No one's done something like that, at least. So from that perspective, I like it.
Mark I Lab, do you have any comments?
I don't know. Can you guys even hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We actually can hear you better now. You did something that was working.
Sounded like a robot before.
Oh, really? Yeah. So I just took it off. I'm on data, just free wireless, right?
Well, good. You should be paying for this after dropping out so many times.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that, guys. Real quick. So on the dinosaur, I don't know if anybody said it.
We can go back real quick.
On that, I think that if they go back, I like that they differentiated the different paints with the flat tones on the top. But I think that kind of pulls away. I think they should do some kind of like a dry brush finish that maybe will pull out like subtle blues or purples just where they've got the black on the top, only because it looks too flat. I like the two tones, but it looks like it, out of place. And then also if they go back and they do a gloss coat on the eyes and the teeth and the talons on the toes as well, I think that'll really, after they do like a wash on the toes, I think it'll really pull together what they did with the reds, because the red looks fantastic, and there's just little pieces that pull away from the continuity of looking at the whole thing. So
yeah, that's a really good point. Can you talk about the finishes and what you use for finishes? And we'll get back to that Red Hood. Lumple, I just noticed that Lumple Knot is in the chat, and I'm putting some of his comments up on the screen so we can see it. But can you talk about the finishes, and you both can weigh in on this, what you use the different finishes for?
I'll let Justin go.
Did I lose you again?
No, you're still there, bro. Did you hear me?
Hey! You said something about talking about finishes.
Yeah, just talk about what do you use the different finishes, whether it be a gloss finish, semi-gloss, or flat. What do you use?
It really kind of depends on what you're painting. I like to do, I kind of mentioned it, like eyes, teeth, anything that would be naturally looking wet, I would do a gloss finish on. I think a lot of people who kind of just start painting don't really pay attention to what they're buying, and they just go, oh, this is red. And they don't realize that it's like a gloss red.
Yeah.
And one of the hardest things to do is to knock back a gloss finish. And you can do it with a wash, and you can go back over it with a matte finish, but it's always easier to start with a matte and then gloss up the parts that you want glossy. So for me, I usually use everything in a flat, unless I know it's going to be something glossy. Like if we're doing, symbiote stuff, I pretty much use all glossy black just to save myself the trouble. And it also gives a nice undertone. So the shine, if you put something glossy and then you paint over top of it, you'll get a really nice kind of shiny finish. It's almost like putting like a subtle metallic tone under stuff. Yeah. But as far as what I use, I don't use anything super complex. I usually start with a flat black or base coat, depending on how bright I want my colors. Like with this red, I would have gone with a gray. I would have primed the entire thing in gray and then brought it up slowly.
Just to jump in, Justin, on this picture that they got right now, if you look on the mouth just underneath the eyes, you can tell that there's some gray primer still under there. Like it's he's still got to go back in there and paint a little bit of detail just to the right of where you got the mouse right now, Brock.
Right here?
Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
You can see that there's still a bit of that primer shining through, because that figure was originally like orange and brown, I think, right?
Right.
Yeah, I think I've actually got one right here.
Yeah, so you can tell right away that he did put some priming work into that. And
so
let me see. Yeah, I'll bring you up. Go ahead.
yeah.
There we go. And then, yeah, so what I was saying about the teeth is if you turn it sideways, there really isn't a whole lot, like Brock was saying, that, they make it as a kid's toy. So it's a soft, pliable vinyl just in this area, obviously, so that, nobody gets hurt. So it's really hard to paint because that, that type of plastic doesn't take well to a certain type of paint. And if you bump it, you get cracks and stresses. So
yeah.
It's really hard. What he did there was great because he kind of highlighted two different areas. He used the existing mouth line, and then he put a black line there, which kind of indicates kind of a drop shadow where the gum line would be.
Yeah.
I think that was a great thing to do, especially since there's no real variance there because it's kind of just that straight drop down for the teeth.
All right, very good. So let's any final thoughts on the dinosaur, and then we'll move on to where we're at.
No, I think like I said before, the reds and what he did with the washes, and I like to see people that do reds and it feels like it's multiple different reds that they put on, and that's what it looks like he did. So
right, and you were suggesting use some purple to bring that out, the different shades of red, or
yeah, definitely. There's some really neat techniques that it's gonna sound silly, but some color techniques where you can just Google it. You look up contrasting colors, and it sounds counterintuitive, but you actually paint your darker tones the opposite color, and it brings out the harder reds by painting it green. Sounds stupid, but I recommend people try it and then figure it out if it works. I wouldn't go back and do it on this because this looks great. I like the reds the way they are.
Yeah, I think he could just add a couple of the details and maybe work on the finishes, like what you were suggesting, doing the eyes, the mouth, and then the toenails.
Oh yeah,
and then that should alone help improve what he's got, which is already a very nice looking custom. All right, now let's move on to this one. Oh, go ahead, Justin. Go ahead.
I was going to say the last thing about finishes, when he was going to do the toenails, about doing a wash. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but after doing a wash, if you do sink a clear coat on top of it, it helps your wash sink further down into the stresses and the grooves that you're trying to bring out with the washes. So if you were to do the toenails, do a wash on it first in like a brown or a dark black, or whatever color you want down there, and then and then put a clear coat on top with a clear coat or a gloss coat, and it'll look like shiny teeth stresses.
And what's the one that you use? Which is the one that you use?
I usually use Model Masters or the testers. The paint here. You'd think that I'd have something close, right? Model Master. Yeah, I had it right the first time. And then I'm starting to use this Model Color in the Vallejo, which I like these better so far.
Okay.
So the clear I'm unsure of, so I haven't seen, I haven't seen problems with it yet, but I haven't, used it enough to see a difference between the usual Model Masters clear coat that I use. Anyway, sorry, Red Hood, go.
Your turn, because I think we had already started weighing in on it.
So I had heard the last thing that I just want to add, that I just kind of echo what he said about the jacket. Yeah, I think that that jacket's a nice piece, but when people do soft goods and then they try to mix it with a style that looks like a worn, washed look, battle used, and then they do like a fresh leather jacket, it looks cool. But if you're trying to match the style of whatever you're trying to display on your case, and maybe
that's a way to approach it, because maybe if you're trying to get your piece to fit in with Marvel Legends or whatever, and you didn't weather your body like you did or paint it like you did, then maybe the jacket wouldn't be such a contrast to the style. And I think that's what you're getting at, right, Justin?
Yeah. I mean, if you put that, is it a Mezco jacket or is it a custom jacket? I can't.
No,
really
that's a from GPS lot. I think.
Oh. Yeah. See, and that's the thing. So I think those jackets are built to match those other soft goods type style figures that are available. And I think that if you match it with those straight off the shelf, they look, they look like their comic counterparts, fresh, bold colors, fresh off the comic panel. And when you do it, again, you try to mix the two styles and try to do, like a fresh soft good item, and then you mix it with something that has like a finish or a wash on it that makes it look more worn than it, it's more eye distracting than appeasing. You just, you spend too much time looking at the things that don't match.
Right.
But again, if it's for a personal collection, then it's really like, if it makes you happy, then right. Stop enjoying that. I don't enjoy it.
Right. And again, this is stuff that you may be picking up, and I'm talking to Nerd Scum. If you go back and look at the first episode, you looked at some of my first customs, and there's many different things I would do if I had to do those very same ones again. Again, picking a style. It looks like, I think you used a good body for Red Hood. I think the armament looks good. I think I think the holsters that you used are good. I think that any time that you have any buckle or something like that, especially on black, you want to make it stand out. And I can't, and it's hard for me to tell. I feel like there would be some buckles on there that you could have painted. I don't know, maybe some silver to match what you got going on the left leg over here where my pointer is. And that's all I have to say about this one. Should we move on, or do you guys have?
It looks like he did that. It looks like he did add some silver onto the buckles there. At least that's what it looks like. Zoom.
Yeah, he added it on the one on his left leg, but I can't tell the pouches. I think they probably have either some buttons or probably buttons. Maybe not. Maybe there's nothing on there. But what I would have done, and again, I may not be able to see it, but it could be. Let me see if I can blow it up.
Oh, he's got the pouch on the inside of the leg there painted.
Yeah, this is about as big as I can get it to go. Like, all this to me looks like you've tried to weather it. Maybe, I'm not sure, but maybe you could have done some weathering to the pouches too, so they don't look new compared to what else you got going on here.
Yeah.
Right.
Or even add some lining highlighting just so that it stands out, like the opening of the pouch, just so that it doesn't look like he's got black blocks sitting on his leg.
Right. Right. So I think it's a good use of body parts. I think you got the right deal with his jacket because he does wear a brown jacket. I think the use of the Iron Man helmet is fine. A lot of people have used that, but I think if you just add a little bit of those details that we were mentioning, I think it'll help improve your figure. All right, moving on to Lady Deathstrike by the Watcher 24/7. Who wants to weigh in on this?
I'm not familiar with the all of the Toy Biz stuff, but it looks to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it looks like it's using the shoulder pads and the arms from the Toy Biz figure with the domino legs and I want to say a Psylocke head.
I
think that's right.
Yeah, I think you got it on the money. Let me see if he's got the for the body. Oh no, this is something else.
What'd you say for the body?
It looks like either a Mockingbird or a Domino. I think Domino.
She uses the same, right?
Yeah, they're both the same, but I think Mockingbird's got the black shin pads, and Domino might come with the already grayed out ones.
Yeah, I think you're right. And the Mockingbird has like a white panel on the inside as well, so they probably went with the Domino. Yeah, I like the build. Sorry, go ahead, Brooke.
No, I think as far as like you're just saying, it's a good build. I am one of those people that I will absolutely swear against those stupid ball joint hips. I think they are the worst thing that's ever happened. So any excuse for them to update a ball jointed Toy Biz figure and make it look great like that is a good excuse in my books. I think it's simple, but again, I can tell that it's Lady Deathstrike and it looks great.
I agree.
Yeah, I think I think the use of parts is good. Again, I would the cloth really stands out to me. again, what I was saying for the previous custom, give it a little bit of treatment. Now the thing is, if you go use it and you're going to apply it with a paintbrush, I think you're going to have a tougher time than if you had an airbrush. I would prefer to use an airbrush on an application like that, where you're going to highlight or add shadows or whatever. And you can even do different. You can even do different color shades of red. I think cloth like that is good for painting. It looks good, in my opinion. It gives it a little bit more. I don't think texture is the right word, but maybe depth that you can actually, like if you were to do a shadow on the one right here where I have my pointer on, if this was darker than the red here, I think that would, right now it's the light is causing it, but if you actually physically went in there to put it, again, that may be just a preference for me. But when I see things that are painted, everything's painted, and then this isn't, for me, it's not aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah,
personally,
it stands out to the eye.
I agree with that.
To put, like, it's kind of an eyesore that it just kind of stands out like that and takes away from the rest of the figure. I wish, and again, this is a perfect world where everybody has access to every single piece of figure that ever existed, but I wish he would have used the belt, because obviously he used the Psylocke head. He's got the figure laying around. I wish he would have used the belt that came with her instead. And for legs, I've seen people use those ones, and I've seen people use the legs from the Angela figure. I so much more would have wished that he used the Angela legs, but that still looks good.
Oh yeah, the Angela legs would have been a good idea.
But just because the way her legs look in the comics, it almost looks like they're kind of covered by this kind of transitioning metal thing, and Angela's look the very same way if you paint them black. So, but again, that doesn't take away from how good this looks. It's just that sash really distracts from it.
One of the other things that I would point out too, just because you did paint, I think you may have painted over the Lady Deathstrike. I think because it may have been a lighter brown, if I'm remembering it correctly, or maybe you didn't paint it. I would tell you again the same thing I was just saying for the sash. I would do the same thing for this leather. And one of the things that you could do is look up how to paint leather on miniatures. And a lot of the Citadel Warhammer dudes, they'll tell you exactly what paints they use and to get like a really nice textured leather look on that piece. And they have very good instructional videos on YouTube. Highly recommend it. And they, of course, they're pushing the Citadel brand, but you can do it with a bunch of different brands. But if you have Citadel available in your area and you're going to be you're not going to be airbrushing at all, then the Warhammer tutorials would be really good.
And to piggyback on the point that you just made, Brock, if this is for customizers that are new and aspiring, spend the time watching the videos. Because I get so many people that'll message me and they'll ask me questions that right away, just based on the questions that they're asking me, I can tell that you have spent zero time watching any YouTube videos, which if I have the time, I'll answer the questions for you, but it's a bit of a pain when you know that someone doesn't want to put that time in, especially knowing that these are going to take 10, 15, 20, 30 hours to do. But when you talk about, how to paint leathers, how to paint certain textures, how to apply certain things, Google is a wonderful thing. All of that stuff is out there. And if you just spend 2 or 3 hours researching and learning and finding all the different stuff that's out there to you, if you come to me and you say, hey, this is all the stuff that I've seen or all the stuff that I've found, which of these do you think is great? I'm a lot more inclined to want to answer that in depth, because it tells me that you're willing to take the time to learn about the craft and you're willing to take the time on your own to find out what you're doing.
Justin, any final thoughts on that?
Just to go with what Ryan was saying, I think that a lot of the artists that do this are so self-guided that they really want to find the avenues that work for them. So people, I can't tell you how many videos I've watched of other people doing stuff, and not just custom work. Just I spend a lot of time watching people do like acrylic painting, and just seeing what brush strokes that people do and the way that paint reacts in the different scenarios. So, you just like you said, spend some time on YouTube and you'll, it's like raising your hand to answer a question that, the teacher's in the middle of answering, right? Like you can just go ahead and find the information faster by yourself than trying to go to somebody who, might have used something that doesn't work for you and then perfected it to a different way. I can't tell you how many different techniques that I picked up from different artists that worked for me at one time, and then they turned into something else when another artist walked in the room. They're like, well, why don't you try it this way? And I was like, oh, maybe I'll use both. So, I could give people a bunch of different information, but it won't make sense to you unless you've already made the steps, and kind of stumbled your own way just a little bit, and then kind of found your way here. So, anyways, jumping back to this one, to Lady Deathstrike, I think that I know exactly why he used the sash. That piece that he used for the shoulder harness is an incomplete piece, which means when you strip it from Deathstrike, you have to cut it out, and it leaves a nasty, like, unless you mold it perfectly or have a cover or a belt that, like, I think I sent you guys a shot of my original one, but I used kind of the same technique, and I wrapped it with a belt so that you couldn't see the mark that it leaves afterwards. So I understand what he was doing with the sash. I would have gone with, so the domino body, it works. It was an easy swap out. I see what he's doing with, the size. I would have switched out the feet. If you want to maintain, like you said, if you didn't want to go with an Angela body, I would have switched out the feet only because it feels like, I don't know. I don't like the feet.
Lady Deathstrike,
they have like a flat
boots with those fingers.
Yeah. I think like Nico comes with something with laces, right? Or maybe one of the smaller figures that matches this body style, but just something that had a little more texture to it, because I feel like I like the texture on the shins and the knees, and then you see the feet, and they kind of look like those old school librarian shoes, right?
Birkenstock.
Yeah, I mean, they're cool. Like, they look like a set of Doc Martens. That's what I'm thinking.
Wow.
And then as far as the sash goes, so it's not, that's a small complaint. I think that it was a good build. It was a good idea. You know what I mean? It was a quick, as far as a swap in, swap out for pieces, it was a good eye for which buck to use. As far as the sash goes, there was some videos that I had seen before, and it was like one of the first things you just look up, custom action figures, and one of them has this guy that makes he does like a Gambit and a Superman. He sculpts the entire thing from scratch, like all the musculature from like a Bucky cap that he had stripped down. And then what blew me away though is that he paints the cloth afterwards. And I mean, he uses like this type of paint, just the the Master's Touch acrylic that you can buy in the canvas painting section, and he uses that type of paint. And what it does is it gives the cloth almost like an acrylic feel, and then he treats that the same way that he treats his plastic. So he still applies a dry brush afterwards. And so when you have situations like this, the leather it wouldn't have worked on. I mean, I don't think it would have worked on. I've never painted leather or pleather or any imitation type of animal hide, but for this, I think that if he would have gone over and painted that sash, or maybe done, because I imagine that's a section of fabric, if you would have taken another, tried it with a different one as well, and keep this one, try it if he doesn't like it. But I recommend like you take a sash, paint it black, and then bring it back up and do reds, and then dry brush the entire thing. Because if it's not going to be, I mean, except for the back, if it's got a wire in the back and it's not going to be static, there won't be a lot of pressure on it anyways. But even in those videos where I saw the guy do Gambit and Superman, he had a pliable cape, like a wired coat and a wired cape, so he was still able to move it around. So but yeah, other than that, I think it's a great, like X said, it was I look at it, I immediately think Deathstrike, and the choice of the Psylocke head makes sense because of the ethnicity of the character. It's a nice way to to just pull in some of her natural features without having to try too hard. And it's a good head swap. It's good eye for a bash. So
yeah, it's really clever.
All right, let's move on to the next one. And here,
I love this.
Yeah, it's so beautiful.
I never played the game, so I'm not familiar.
It's a fun game. Good character.
Can we boot Brock from here?
Talk about BioShock. No, that's a fantastic custom. If I can't remember her name, and for just giving Brock crap for not having played the game, that makes me look bad. But
Elizabeth?
Yeah, Elizabeth. There we go.
Brock can read though.
If I were to go about making that custom, I probably would have chosen that exact figure to go about it. I think that Janet head sculpt, he obviously sculpted the hair on top of it. I think it's perfect. I wish on her outfit that he would have done something just to get those lines on her white shirt a little bit straighter, just because if you look really close, they're a little all over the place. And
let me see if we can blow this up.
Yeah, no, you're on the money.
Outside of that, though, like it looks like he had to paint the face as well. And, you know, I try to, you know, do Cirque du Soleil level acrobatics to avoid painting faces if I can, because it's not easy to do. And he did a great job. So I think it's a great custom. I think I wish he would have done something, you know, use some painter's tape, or, you know, I guess just painter's tape was the only option there. But, you know, something to give you that straight line on the body, just so that, you know, that it really takes away from the custom itself. Because right now, looking at it, I don't see Elizabeth. I just keep looking at those lines on her body.
It's TK Toy Picks. Is that the one we're looking at? Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I blew it up just so you guys can see it. Yeah, TK Toy Picks, correct. So let me ask you a question, Justin. So I'm looking at the sculpt. Obviously, he added some sculpt here. I'm not sure what material or which sculpt, Aves or Milliput or whatever he used on here. What would you do to get rid of? Because, you know, as you look at it, you can see the the corset area. What are we going to call that area? With this area where the black lines are
corsets, right?
Yeah, let's go.
What would you do to smooth that out? Because it does look like it was a little bit rough.
Well, so is that rough intentionally though? Because I don't know if that's like a stylized, like in the corset area specifically. I think it almost looks like wrinkles on purpose, maybe.
You know, I thought that, but when I blow it up, I don't know if he did that on purpose, but maybe he did. I don't know.
If you look, there's right along the hemline of her cleavage line, you can actually see some indentations for. It almost looks like he tried to do stitch lines and press them in.
Right, this part, but I'm talking about like here.
Yeah.
Looking at pictures of her online, she is supposed to have actually no lines, but the artists that have depicted her with lines, they're pretty traditionally straight. I think from that era, that kind of steampunky, you know, old style era, everything was efficient and nice and streamlined. And
yeah, I would say, okay, so in answer to the question about the sculpt, I personally, and like you said, like you immediately called it out, and the fact that we can't tell kind of just detracts away from what we're trying to look at, right?
Yep.
So I would have gone, so whatever he used to sculpt with, whether it be Milliput or Aves or, you know, green stuff or whatever anybody uses, there is a, you know, once it's hardened and it's cured, it can be sanded down. And I would take, I recommend taking a high grit sandpaper, anything 220 or above, and then do a wet sand. You just add a little bit of water and you sand it slowly, and it'll kind of rough out any imperfections. And people like it's tedious, but I think every customizer is going to say they hate sanding no matter what, like whether it's sanding, prepping joints, or even if you've got a rotary tool that, you know, does the work for you, it sucks trying to do any of that stuff.
Worst part of customs.
Yeah, worst part about it. And like I can't tell you how many times I've taken chips to the face, you know. I don't need safety goggles, and then it's hot steaming plastic to my eye, to my retina. But yeah, I would have gone over after everything was cured, and I think that a lot of customizers get scared about what they're doing. I think that they get to a certain point, they don't want to push it. You know, they don't want to ruin the progress they've made, because you can't take a step back. And I think that, you know, once you're over the hump as an artist and you're like, well, every step forward could potentially be a better step than what it was before. Yep. You start making those things, those judgment calls where you can sand the rough edge and go, you know what, this looked better than it did before. I'm glad I did that. So I would have sanded the corset area, even if you know, the wrinkles were intended, knowing that it affected the lines, the straight lines that should be straight. But like you said, it's like Ryan said, it's the first thing I look at. But that being said, if you look at some of the other paint lines in the figure, and there's a couple areas like at far, I love looking at this figure because I know who it is. I think it's a great homage to the character, and it's a really clever use of, like you said, it's a perfect head sculpt. It was a bold thing to do some sculpted shoulders, which is, you know, you could have hinder articulation whenever you do that. So to put in the kind of puffed out shoulders was a great nod to the character style, but also, you know, obviously that was one of those things that, it made a judgment call for the style against the articulation, which I think worked out for the character. And then they introduced soft goods as well.
Yeah.
Now, from top to bottom, I'm going to say the paint is great. Again, like if you look at it from far away, it looks good. But as you start to get closer and closer, even though every inch of the figure is painted head to toe, I think that there's a lot of rough spots. Like if you look in the neckline, her choker, you can see how, even though they included the details and the dots, you can see that the top of the neckline is actually jagged. Her neckline on the jacket, the skin tone bleeds into the blue.
Let me stop you right there. Let's go back up to the choker. So how would you tell them to be cleaner? How do you clean that up?
You actually addressed this once in one of your This Week in Customs. So what I do, I like to reference this to anybody who's ever used Photoshop, or even if not, if the idea is pretty much simple across the board. You start with a layer. So for example, you start with a skin tone layer, right? And you make sure you keep, if you mixed a color, you keep it off to the side because you're going to need it to block in and fix mistakes. But let's say then he goes in and he paints a choker, and he tries to freehand it, okay? And a lot of people try to. I would do the same thing. And my choker, probably the first go round would look exactly like that. In fact, a lot of my customs that I post online in the preliminaries, the paint looks terrible and sloppy, but that's because I do that on purpose. I block it in, and then I go back and I sharpen edges as I need to. So, so with this, he would have painted the white, but then what I would have done is taken, that's a hard area to tape. So I would have taken a straight, like a square edge brush for detailing. And then, with skin tones and whites, you want to make sure that you are using wet paint, not, chunky, straight from the bottle paint. Make sure it's, viscous enough to move around. And then gently take the brush and edge it up the same way, you'd paint the edge of a wall. You'd edge it up into the line. And then if you make a mistake, you just take the white and you go back the other way, once it's dry. So it's tedious and it takes a long time, but it's definitely, it's worth the effort, because right now, I obviously can see it straight away. And the same thing with the line around the collar of the neck. I would have done the same thing. I would have, it's an easy fix. If he goes back over right now and he does the blue and he follows that line all the way down, that'll clean up that line where it looks like the skin is bleeding over. So,
right.
And a lot of it's just trial and error. If you do it wrong, and again, you have to just get past that initial not wanting to mess up what you're already working on. And so don't be afraid to paint over it, paint over it 100 times if you have to. And especially, once you get the neckline perfect and you look at it versus where it was to begin with, you'd be a lot happier that it's, you took the time to go back and edge the lines. And even though it sounds like a pain in the ass. So.
Yeah. And you can do that with these lines that are on the corset area too. You can use that same principle to clean up those lines. You look at all these guys that are doing the Spider-Man emblems, and that's exactly how they're cleaning their stuff up, because they're not machines.
Like Pounds, 978. Right. That guy's a genius.
Yeah, he's got very, very clean lines, and that's exactly the technique that he will use. Ryan, any final thoughts on this figure before I move on?
No, you guys have pretty well touched on everything for this one. I'm good.
All right.
If
I can, the last thing on the so the incorporation of the soft goods was a great idea. And it might have been their first go round. That hemline, it looks like a simple stitch. That's something that if you look online, there's something you flip it inside out and you do a tighter stitch, and that'll get rid of those loose threads and look like more of a finished. Check out who are our guys. We got Tiny Pants and
Harker Customs.
Harker. Those guys, if you ever just want to watch one of their live streams, just watch them stitch for 5 minutes and you'll be like, oh man, it just takes slow, precise, and those guys have it's all muscle memory at this point. But like the seam line, it's important, especially if you're going to do soft goods, because if the rest of the figure was clean, like let's say all of his lines were clean and then the soft goods looked like that at the bottom, I'd still say, ooh, I would have skipped, I would have not gone with the soft goods if you weren't going to do a clean seam line. But
there's a bunch of like stitching patterns. I'm thinking of one like a ladder stitch is like an invisible stitch. Then this thread wouldn't have shown. Another thought is you could have flipped it inside out and then sewed it. I've done a few customs that my wife taught me how to sew. It's not easy unless you do it a lot of times, especially at this scale. and you're doing all this by hand. But like what he said, look up some sewing videos. Maybe you did, but you see that string that's sticking out. I think that's what. And then the stitching here doesn't look very tight on the dress. It draws your eyes to the stitch when it shouldn't do that. All right, moving on to this next one. Ryan, why don't you start us off?
Yeah, I really like what he did there. I think I talked about it before. I absolutely love when people can cut apart the faces. Like I see a lot of people that are given the Wendigo, the closed mouth, people that have given Sasquatch screaming mouths, that kind of stuff. I think that's super cool. I think that's super clever. And what he did here with putting the bottom mouthpiece of Kylo Ren onto the top part of the Captain America mask, I think that's just, it's clearly Captain America, but he's found a clever way to differentiate him, make him look a little bit more evil and menacing. The color is phenomenal. I think he chose great colors. My only critique, it's, at the end of the day, Captain America is still Captain America, even when he's bad. I wish he would have done something to make that red stand out, even if it was the star in the middle stand out, even if it was just throwing some red on it or something. But other than that, I think it's really cool. I think he did a really good job on this one, especially the head sculpts.
Justin?
I want to say, so one of the great things, first of all, Ryan, I like the way Ryan thinks. I think that a lot of what he said was exactly on the money about just making this pop a little bit more. But what I think this customizer was trying to go for was executed really well. Because I think that for one, it's a really subtle mixture of parts, right? Am I looking at like the bottom legs? Are those crossbones, like from the knees down, or is that from that the newer Cap figure?
That might be
Cap top to bottom.
I think that's Cap top to bottom. He's using the Infinity War gauntlets there.
Got it. So what I loved about this custom was that he used existing lines to make something completely different. Like what Ryan said was true. Like Cap is still Cap top to bottom. Like if I look at it, I know it's Cap, but I wouldn't have thought to do this. Like I like that he went with more subtle tones. I think his grays, like I like that they're more of a muted gray and red. I like that he looks more menacing, right? So I really like that. And then the double shields. I think it was a really clever use of something that nobody probably else would have thought of. Mm-hmm. And that's the kind of stuff I love to see. That kind of stuff, because I don't like this. Obviously, this character doesn't exist, right? Like in this form.
Yeah, I don't think this is
mask, right?
I don't think he's ever used this uniform in any of the comic books that I've read. And I read that recent storyline where he was Hydra Cap, and I think that's where he's going for, right? This is
like an evil Cap, right?
Right,
and that's exactly the thing.
What it is, yeah.
It looks like an MCU cap. Like if you hold it up with the Red Skull 10-year anniversary, all of those figures that those henchmen. If you had like 4 or 6 or however many of those lined up behind him, he would look totally in sync with those figures.
Right.
Someone that didn't know that was a custom, they would probably look at it and go, "Oh, hey, there's a Hydra Cap line," because it, again, me saying that he should have made it pop a little bit more. That's just me trying to critique something for the sake of giving him a critique.
Sure.
Ultimately, I think it's perfect. I think it's flawless. I love what he did. But like you said, Justin, it's the grays, the way he did everything, the way he used existing lines just to make things pop, just to make things differentiate from what they normally are supposed to be. It just totally transformed the figure in a really cool way.
Yeah, and it's hard to critique a custom, like as far as like who knows if there was concept art. He didn't put it on here, so you leave us to guess. That could have been just something like, oh man, I think these colors would be good, and that's perfectly okay to do. If we had a picture for reference, and then you said, "Oh, we're trying to get to this," then we can really compare and contrast. But just from looking at it, I'd probably just be repeating myself on highlighting certain areas. Like maybe you can even go to the shield and on the gray lines, maybe on the bottom part, make it a little bit of a darker gray to give it some sort of contrast around those lines. I like the different when you look at the same color but done in a different way. So you do have a contrast between the grays there. I would have liked to have seen, and maybe it wouldn't have looked good. I'm just, these are possibilities that you know, to think. If you would have highlighted those lines, it would have made the shield stand out, maybe those details out a little bit more.
Yeah.
And the same thing for maybe the rest of the figure. But then again, it's all what your desire was, right? I'm not sure. You're probably doing this custom for yourself. So what was what you were going for, and if you hit it, then by all means, you know, it's all good. If you were working with, you know, somebody who commissioned you to do it, obviously you would do it to their taste. But I think that's pretty good for this custom. Fellas, what do you think?
Yeah. The last thing I want to say is just to echo the kind of what we've all been saying, is that I like that we all knew exactly who it was. Granted, I mean, there's a giant star in the middle of his chest, but we all knew that there was, the idea was that it's a Hydra cap, right?
Yeah.
And even though he's never been, you know, seen in the MCU like this, or drawn like this, or even like you said, I mean, maybe concept art doesn't even exist for this. We all knew who it was. You know what I mean? Like, even if he didn't write down Hydra cap, we could all look at it and go, "Hey, that's a cool looking evil cap."
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Very good.
And it does look like there's a bunch of testicles hanging in the background. I don't know if anybody's.
No, we're not. We're absolutely not gonna discuss that.
Move forward.
All right, moving on to oblong triangles. What character is this?
Looks like he's going for maybe a battle worn Taskmaster, I want to say.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know he had other pictures, but I'm not exact. Actually, let me just click on his page real quick. Maybe another.
I did see one further down too. Yeah.
Not. He says DC Nightshade. Nightshade.
I don't know who that is.
Me neither.
Is it a custom character? Like Nightshade's just a name that he gave him, or is that
I don't know, because I'm not sure. Maybe in his work in progress. Let me see if I can find something in his work in progress. Nope, I don't have anything on his work in progress. All I have is this last picture, and yeah, that's not working. Let me get back to Let me get back to where we were. So this one's going to be hard to critique, right? Because we don't really know what this character is supposed to look like.
Well, you know what? I think that, so do you have that other picture where he's standing in front of, well, actually that one might work. Is he in front of characters that are also being sculpted on the background?
Well,
I have one,
the last
darker
one
picture. Yeah.
He mentioned X-Men, and it looks like this could be a Wolverine claws on here, maybe.
I Googled Nightshade and DC, and it shows up as a woman. So I don't know. Man.
So it could be.
I think it might be unique.
I think there's a lot to be said about, so not just this one custom. If you go to the last picture, there's a lot of stuff that he's got in the background, and I see there's a lot of issues with how he's going about sculpting, and I think it shows in the final product, obviously, with this Nightshade figure. And this is kind of why we picked this, not to say, hey, you're not doing a good job, or hey, why can't you sculpt like anybody else who's good at sculpting? Sculpting is hard.
Yeah. And
it's scary, and I think that a lot of people they kind of jump right in, and I think that's a good way to do it. But I see a lot of these techniques, Ryan, you know what I'm talking about here. But with the way that when you work with Aves and you work with one side, and you've got something really nice, and then you go to work on something on the other side because you get greedy, right? You just want to get get both pecs done. You want to get both sides of the hair done.
Oops.
Thumbprints. And Aves, it's heat reactive, so the hotter your hands are, the more you work it. it gives you different properties, and so there's so many things that I think that to sculpt, like a lot of people get gung ho about it and they get greedy, and I think that you can see a lot of that here. Not that this person is necessarily getting greedy. Let me call him out because I want to say it. So oblong triangle, you're doing a great job, and I like that. Especially so there's the character off to the right that's got the horns. I see a lot of thumbprints, but I also see a lot of like bold judgment calls as far as your sculpting goes. It almost looks like you tried to use every piece of sculpt that you had. Trying to do things like horns. You don't want to do horns freehand unless you've got a place to set them where they can naturally be pulled by gravity over time, because otherwise you're going to get sag, right? And horns, unless you've got an armature underneath that's going to support it, when you use sculpt, you know, you always take a risk when you're doing anything that protrudes away from the body. It can just, you know, one shelf dive away from fracturing all the horns off the top of that head, right?
Yeah.
But also there's like, so with that, I see a lot of like really good strides to do sculpt work, but I also see a lot of rushed work. They wanted to paint it too fast. They didn't do any kind of prep after the fact. You know, there's so many things that could have been done with nightshade in the front. You know, they could have gone back over just with that sculpt alone, and again, sanded it down to a smooth finish, and it would look, you know, 50% better than whatever you were going with before, just because you're no longer looking at the deviations in the sculpt or you know, a crookedness. Or the roughness.
Well, let me just jump in here real quick.
Go ahead,
when your epoxy is setting up and it's firm enough to the point where you want to polish off, maybe you got some thumbprints in there or some imperfections like what you got here on this mask. One of the things that I've been told, and I've been doing it, you can take a little bit of the stuff that you put on your lips. Well, yeah, rubbing alcohol too, but the stuff that you use on your lips,
chapstick.
Vaseline.
Yeah, like Vaseline. There you go. You Vaseline, and you can polish that to a pretty much like a mirror finished. It'll smooth that out completely. I've tried it on a recent project that I'm working on, and along with rubbing alcohol, instead of using water, you use rubbing alcohol when you're applying this on. It makes it a lot easier to manipulate. It won't leave your thumbprints. But before you even have to sand, you can use that the Vaseline, and then once it's completely set up, then you want to sand. But let me cut you guys off. Let's move on because we're already over an hour, and we just spent way too much time on the first ones, and we still have a few more. And let's move on. Ryan, you can weigh in on this one first. Let me back this out.
Yeah, I think that one's beautiful. You know, I know it's a critique.
Well done, sir.
Yeah, but like, to you, sir, because I again, not a big DC guy, but I know it's Martian Manhunter. It's everything about it looks great. The paint looks smooth. It doesn't look like a custom, and that, you know, sometimes the paint looks a little choppy, or you can see the flakes from where they didn't thin it out enough. The only thing that, you know, I can kind of tell that it's a custom is that red mark across his chest. I think he used some sort of tape or something like that to avoid having to paint direct lines. But outside of that, the cloth goods look really good. I can't get over the smoothness of that green and how good he made that look. I think maybe
I'm pretty sure he airbrushed this on because he recently got an airbrush, and the previous one he mentioned it was the first time using it. So I'm sure he used, at least it looks like he used an airbrush on this because it is pretty smooth.
Yeah, and to people watching that are on the fence about an airbrush, like, man, the customs that I make where I'm able to use an airbrush, it just makes such a world of difference. You can paint so much easier. It cuts down the time by about half, and just the way the paint looks when you apply it with an airbrush as opposed to the hand, it's you can't compare it. It's so much more incredible, and you see that with the example that we've got right here, and that how smooth, how it looks like that just came off the factory line.
Justin,
you ready? I'm going to nitpick. You ready?
Go for it.
All right. So first of all, let's cut back to what we were talking about stitching earlier. So what he did with soft goods, if he did it himself or he ordered it or bought it, you can see the craftsmanship is a lot different on this stitch. Even though you can see the stitch, it's on, you know, it's a good looking stitch. It's very tight. Yeah. It's clean, and it looks like that's wired so that just falls on his shoulder and gets pressed into place, which is awesome. I think it's so, and again, the head sculpt looks like it's custom, right? Because this looks like a wrestling figure, if I'm not mistaken.
This is a Storm Collectibles.
I was gonna say, it looks like Storm.
He likes to spend a lot of money on his fodder.
Right, that's perfect. Parts is parts. So here's my only nitpicking parts. So like you said about the tape, it was a great, I think it's an interesting way, not a great way, an interesting way to solve that issue about trying to paint perfectly clean lines straight across. If you notice though, his X doesn't intercede at the middle of his pecs. So it actually crosses a little bit slightly left to where the center of his chest would be. Now, I mean, granted, if it's a free floating X and maybe it's, on a uniform, it shifts off to the side. But for me, like I can see that the line doesn't, the top of the triangle of the X doesn't match the center of his pecs.
Cannot unsee.
Yeah, and then also around his torso, it kind of makes sense because it wouldn't be a straight line, but I can actually see the U shape. And then on top of the boots, I see a little bit of green. And that's all I'm going to nitpick because, I mean, the thing is gorgeous. The guy
and a lot of it is going to be a preference. I'm looking at the laces of the boots. Since you're using laces on the boots, I would like to see a little bit of a contrast there.
Yeah, he could have painted those white.
Yeah, he could have painted those white or exactly a lighter blue or something. He could have done that to the top of the boots as well, just to clean that up. And he still, I mean, I think it's his custom, so he can still do it. And he put it up for Critique My Custom. So there you have it. Any last words on this before we move on, players?
Yep. For the laces, I think that's tough because I think once, like, if you were to go with white laces or black laces, I think you would start to look like wrestling boots again. So I think the choice to go with a blue tone was a good idea, but maybe like a dry brush or because he doesn't have a whole lot of dry brushing going on. Looks like it's all just perfectly clean airbrush.
Yeah,
but
he could have done a wash. Maybe he could have done a wash on the
or a wash maybe. Something to drop into the recesses.
Like he's done some highlighting here. I think that there's different colors of green. Some of the guys, let me see what we got. Somebody, Symbiote Seeker in the comments are saying the muscles need to be a little bit more defined, and then he should have sculpted the chest. I think that's my biggest for me. I think the whole idea of this guy, it looks really, really good. I think the green looks good. I think I would have either taped it and painted it, which would have been a chore, or I would have sculpted some sort of X here. I know that's the choice he looked because he wanted to make it look. I think he told me to make it look more of a for a strap. But again, that's a preference.
Yeah,
and it's not necessarily an improve, for your custom. Moving on to the next one. This was from James Roseborough, and I did use this one for the thumbnail.
Yeah.
So you guys jump at it.
That's a really cool kit bash of it looks like he used the regular cable chest piece, but he threw on an Agent Venom belt underneath it with the Colossus legs and the Colossus left arm. So, I mean, for Cable to give him a metal arm, the Colossus left arm is pretty solid choice to go with.
Yeah.
I like what he did with all of the browns and the leathers. I think he did a great job making those look, weathered. He should talk to that guy that did the red hood with the brown jacket. But I think he did a great job just painting the leathers, making them look actually weathered. And, interesting choice of parts. I don't like the color that he chose for the pants. I wish that was a different color. But again,
can you talk about that? What is it about the color that you don't like?
You know what? Maybe it's just me being a bit of a Cable purist. Maybe it's just the aesthetics of the way it looks, but just the orange with all of the other colors that he's using, the orange really takes me out of it. It really draws my eye down towards his pants. And
what almost looks like from this picture right here, it almost looks like it's flesh.
Yeah,
he's got like these.
Yeah, it kind of looks like he's wearing a Speedo underneath that all those belts. Or I hope
he may be. Pants. He may be. You never know.
He's from the future. They might have different standards there.
Yeah, everything they play a little looser. He likes to go commando. Because he is get it. Because okay.
Yeah, we get it. All right.
Yeah. Now I can't unsee that. I can't unsee his nakedness underneath his belt. Okay, Ryan, I absolutely agree. I think it's a fantastic use of parts. I love this build. It's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I hope it becomes more available because it's I love to build on it. And I like what he did with the upper pieces, like this little strap in the middle that goes. It kind of mixes like these buckles. I don't know if that's an actual buckle. Yeah, but it looks more like
that's a cool little piece.
You're talking about this right here?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it draws my attention for a good reason. It looks like it's a, kind of a mixed media piece, almost like it was taken from one of those military dolls. Don't know what that line is, but yeah, like you said, awesome use of pieces. I love all the pouches and everything that he used here, and especially like you said, the arm. I see a lot of people trying to make a bigger cable, and this buck is giant for making him on. But then again, as soon as you get past the belt and you get down to the legs, I immediately recognize Colossus boots. I would have loved to see like a combat boot on him. You know what I mean? If they mixed in some kind of, you know what would be great on him is those Gears of War boots that I hate, but like it would have been just something more tactical, like something with a shin guard and laces and something. This looks a little too smooth, and again, it immediately calls back to Colossus. And now that he's naked, I can't unsee him naked.
Right.
But other than that, I think this is it's a great piece. For one, I like the muted colors. I think whenever people try to make a character that is recognizable right away, I said it before, but it's never been drawn this way. I love it when customizers do something like that. You know what I mean? Like put their pouches wherever they want to put the pouches, and not just where they are in the comic books.
That's one of the funniest things with doing customs is you'll put something out and then you get 1,000 messages from these comic peers that say, well, it's not supposed to look like that. And it's like, it's my custom, man. I painted it the way I wanted it to. If it doesn't look good, then it doesn't look good. But come on, man.
Yeah, you couldn't figure out it was Batman? Come on.
Yeah, like
it still looks like Batman. Who cares?
I think for me, what I like the upper half better than the lower half of this custom.
Yeah.
And what really stands out, and it's already been mentioned, I just see Colossus, right? I see Colossus's arm, and I see Colossus's boots. Are those? I don't know if those are Colossus legs.
I think he's used.
They are.
It looks like he might have used the entire Colossus body. Because do you have any?
He says he actually used the Wrecking Crew. I can see the Wrecking Crew upper body right here.
The Wrecking Crew upper torso, and I just saw it in the abdomen. That's the muscle definition.
Because I don't think that, if I remember correctly, I don't know if those Colossus boots have a swivel on them. So I think those might be grafted to the actual lower leg. So.
Yeah, I think that's
you are correct.
And it's tough to tell because he's got the part where the leg connects to the groin covered to tell if it's the ball joint from the Wrecking Crew character or not.
Well, no, the Wrecking Crew is not a straight up ball joint. It's like a
that weird Y or whatever.
Y joint thing.
They tried to improve, but they failed basically.
It's
a good hit.
It's definitely because the Wrecking Crew one has a weird texture to it too, and it has like a pull across the thighs that's you can clearly see, and I'm pretty sure that the Colossus legs, which those are definitely knees, so feet up to the knees, they don't mix well with the Wrecking Crew body. So he probably did Colossus all the way up to the midsection, and then did Wrecking Crew on top because it looks like. Wrecking Crew definitely in the midsection.
Yeah, looking at the right arm now, you can definitely tell that hand there is the pile driver hand or whatever his name is, and. Yeah, no, I can clearly see that now, but no, it's a good piece. James did a great job on that one.
Yeah, good piece. I'd paint the pants.
Yeah, paint the pants, James.
Yep. Yeah. Moving on,
and maybe the boots.
Here's another one that James put in.
No.
Oh, I like this one.
I know that Marvel Select Hulk, and I initially thought this was the Maestro. That is the Maestro Hulk lower body, isn't it?
I think it's well enough. It is. So it's what it is. It's select down to the knees, and then those are sculpted cuffs.
Yeah, I thought.
And he might have used the boots, like the boots from the Maestro.
Okay.
Molded them in. But yeah, it looks like select all the way up after that, but that's a Maestro. That's the Maestro head.
See, I like the shading. I like what he's got going on here. In the torso.
Yeah,
and he does have this style, and it's unique to him. I don't see, like if I looked at this figure and I didn't know it was James right here, I could tell that this is the way he shades a lot of his figures. There's something about it that I really like. I don't know what it is. I think it's maybe that it has some flesh, like flesh undertone with the green that I do like.
It's a really I don't want to say not so cheap, but it's a very easy way to just make something look a lot more detailed than what it actually is. I say that Toy Biz survived with that method for such a long time, where they just threw a wash on figures. But when you put in work like that to make it look like that. If you do a wash well, and this is an example of a really good wash, not only does it add depth to the figure like you see here, but it just, everything pops so much more. It makes things look a little bit better than what they're supposed to. And it's a cool Maestro. Maestro is supposed to be big. I don't like the old Toy Biz one that we got. It's, you know, like 6 inches tall or something like that. That is Maestro as he's supposed to be.
And he can barely stand on his own if memory serves me correct.
Yeah.
That was one of my first Select figures that I ever owned. Looking at the pants, just weighing in on the paint. So I do like what he did here. And this is kind of like his signature thing I see on a lot of his customs. There's something about the pants, especially. It looks like there's a lot of paint pooled here.
Yeah.
And I don't visually care for it. Maybe that's what he was going for. I don't know what he was going for, right? So I don't know how to get into his mind. I can just tell you if I find it aesthetically pleasing or not. It just to me, it looks a little bit on the unfinished side. Like maybe he needed to, I don't know, go over it with other blues or to tighten that.
I think he had to texturize. That looks like those boots were sculpted in. And that looks like sculpted flares. And so those flares they didn't have the texture of the upper legs. And that's why they stick out so much.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. So what would you have done there, Justin?
That's a tough call, because if I'm going to sculpt pants, you're going to run into this a lot. If you try to do it on top of a texture that is completely different, like that's supposed to be,
I think it's torn pant bottoms.
Torn pants bottoms. But if you sculpt in like a finished pant that doesn't have any tears or any texture, I would have tried to find something where you could try to recreate that texture as best as you could to at least you don't have to match it necessarily, but you have to blend it enough to make it look like it doesn't draw attention to it, right? And you could do that with anything. I would take, I've actually taken that dinosaur that we showed earlier and taken his tail. I've got sections of his tail cut off, and it has a nice texture to it. If I have a clay that's partially cured, I'll roll that into it. If I want to do like dinosaur skin and stuff, just to make it look like it's not, flat against a textured finish. So a couple, and again with the finishes. So the necklace around his neck, I would have liked to see that a little cleaner, because if you look at the comic book stuff, you're going to incorporate the medallions. They have a very specific look, but they're very clean, right? If they show as hard edged or rounded edged, they're always specific, but this one is kind of hard to tell. Yeah. And it only just draws away only because of the way that we can see the edges on here. And a little bit of his lines, like when he incorporated some of the bands on the wrists, I like the way they look, but I can see the seam lines where they float.
Yeah.
How do you fix that?
There's a couple things. So a lot of what I do is more just covering up mistakes. So if I do something like that and I find a mistake, I'll find a way to fix it by either, I'll put a buckle there, maybe, right? Just you cover it up with another piece of fodder that melds the two looks that you're trying to find. Another thing I do is if I'm using like straps like that, whenever you try to incorporate straps that go in a circle, I try to cut them so that they make opposite shapes, like two angles. And so when you lay them on top of each other, you can get a cleaner seam line, because they're not laying on top of each other. They're more bridged together, like a trapezoid shape. Does that make sense? Like
side by side.
Yeah, or side by side, or I like to try to lay them on top of each other. Or what I'll do is I'll strip the very ends of a strap with a really sharp razor blade down to paper, almost microscopic thinness. And then when you lay that down with a like a super glue or something, you'll get a cleaner, harder line on top of whatever you're doing. And it's a good way to overlay straps like that, because it doesn't have the raised, pronounced edge where it's clearly, floating on top, but not buckled in or pinned in. So, and also you can see that a little bit on the side of the belt. He probably tried to do the same thing, because you have to cut that. If you can't get it off of Maestro hips, you do have to cut it to get it off of him. And he probably did try to get it back onto this guy. And it may not have fit all the way around him, because if it, I've got this Hulk here somewhere, and I'm pretty sure
he's wider than Maestro.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what the finish looks like on either side or in the back, if it's tilted or if he's got full coverage across the entire diameter of the back of the figure. But I mean, I can see it from here.
And to that point right there, so whenever we have our next episode, when I try to do it, I try to show you what I wanted. I wanted it like a 360 view of the figure, just so we can make comments like that, because we really don't know what the back looks like. So when you're submitting your customs, this is very well lit. This is perfect. We can critique the front. It's very clear, but it'd be nice to be able to see what you got going on in the backside. Now, going back up to this collar.
Yeah, we want to see what you got going on in the backside.
Going to this collar right here, what would you suggest? Let's say sculpting is not an option. Let's say the sculpt, like the person is brand new. What else could you do? Thinking outside the box, what would you do, Weapon X?
To make which part stand out?
This collar piece, yeah. What would you have done?
You know, honestly, and it might be a bit of a cop-out answer, but if I was doing the necklace for Maestro, I would have probably taken advantage of the thousands of extra heads that I've got in my fodder box, and just, I guess traditional Maestro's got like the Iron Man helmet and Thor helmets and stuff on a necklace. I probably would have gone that route.
Like a sash.
Yeah, like the cool sash or whatever with all of the trophies of heroes that he's conquered or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, for something like that, maybe a gloss gold finish just to make it shine and stand out a little bit more, because I know he wants to be a little bit more subtle with that stuff. But yeah, I know what he's going for. Maybe my only suggestion would have been just maybe a gloss finish or a different paint job just to make it pop a little bit.
Guys, you got to remember when you're a customizer and you go into stores that are typically for ladies, like a Joann's or a what are some other stores? A Michael's. It's an art. You're an artist. You're allowed to go in there. I think they make some some costume jewelry that you may be able to find that has shape.
That's a great idea.
That may actually have the exact same shape that you're looking for. You won't know until you go in there. Hobby Lobby also has stuff like that, so give it a go.
Even the dollar stores, like they've got the Halloween decorations right now. You can buy those little small skeletons. You take those apart, and you've got all sorts of different bones for you know if you want to do man-ape or throw bones on that guy or whatever. Just there's so many outlets for creativity that are out there for you.
And whenever I go into those stores, I'm either with one of my daughters or with my wife, so I'm safe. I'm good to go. I'm good to go. Just like when I'm at the store looking for toys. Always have one of them with me. That's always good. See, Justin, you got kiddos. You can take them with you when you're going to those stores. All right, let's move on because we still have some more to go. Let's just make these. This is going to be sculpting related, and there are some questions in the chat about sculpts and the type of sculpts. Maybe we can address it while we're going on here. What do you guys got to say about the sculpting here from Just Figure It Out?
Well, I looked at this figure earlier, and the one thing that stood out to me is if you're going to sculpt hair, if you're going to sculpt beards, if you're going to do any of that kind of stuff, always have a reference picture, because the one thing I noticed off the bat is that this guy's beard hair goes like this. And that is really taken away, because beard hair does not go like that. It goes down and out like that. So that really takes my eye away from it. I wish he would have done a little bit more pronounced sculpting right in the bangs, just so that it didn't look like a bit of a conglomerated mess there. But I understand what he's going for, and I think painted it would look really good. I really wish that he would have looked at a reference picture to know that.
This is what he was trying to do.
Okay, so like even there, you can see that the beard, the hair goes a certain way. It doesn't go across his face in a slash like that. So that. I don't know about you guys, but as someone who has had a beard or some form of facial hair for the last 4 or 5 years, that really took me out of that one.
As you can see, Justin can't really speak much to having any facial hair whatsoever.
I had a beard and a mustache for about 4 minutes. I feel your pain. We're beard brothers. Yeah. Totally.
So that's one of the things that, it just doesn't. It doesn't look like hair. And some of the questions I'll address them real quick. Like when I've sculpted hair, I'm fine with using either Aves or Milliput as the base. But when you're trying to do stuff like this long strand, these flickering hair, It's not a good idea, in my opinion, to use those because they're gonna cure very hard like cement, and if it takes a dive, that little thin piece will snap off. Your thin pieces will snap off.
Yeah.
It's good to use a flexible putty like Procreate. I haven't used green stuff, but I hear green stuff has similar properties. And so I think that's what you could have done. You could have done maybe a base and then started sculpting the smaller pieces like this right here, because you were trying to achieve these strands or this strand right here. You just didn't have I think that's milliput by how it looks, I think. And
looks that way.
Yeah. So I think that you weren't going to get the result that you wanted with this.
Well, and you know what, in terms of hair, we could all sit here and talk about it for days, but the easiest thing for the people watching, if you're curious about hair and the how-tos, Phoenix Force Creations, go spend an hour on his page.
Yeah.
Because that guy, he posts all the how-tos, the work in progress shots, and the stuff that he does is just, again, he's top tier, top of the game, top customizer there is. Best example there is to look at for hair. But
yeah, and one of the things with him is that he works in layers. This, most likely what you did, and again, I'm just taking a guess because I've done it myself, and it looks like something I've done in the past. You rolled this out, and you literally plopped it on his head, and then you started using whatever tool to try to make the hair look like this, rather than work in layers. And I'm learning too. And I haven't done too much of the sculpting parts. I am working on a piece and you guys, I'll roll that out in the near future. But the hair is actually looking very similar to that. I actually surprised myself from my skill level. And what I did was it was layers. I worked with layers. I laid the base layer down, and then I individually started, building and putting on the little hair pieces. Using Procreate.
And a lot of people don't understand how tedious of a process that can be. Like, it will take weeks, days, a long time to sculpt hair, especially when you're doing it properly.
The hardest part is like waiting in between, right? So if you're working in layers, you really gotta work with less than you have. Like if you're gonna work on hair, mix less than you think you're gonna need. Always go with less, and then stop.
Yeah. When
you think you've got, if you think you've got far enough, just stop, put it aside, let it dry. Don't try to mush it around. I think what Brock was saying, it does. It looks like the milliput was, as soon as it was mixed, no cure time, it was just put on there. And at that point, it's still, it's still having a chemical reaction. It's still figuring out what substance it is. And so you're going to get really soft, unmanageable clay at that point.
Yeah.
Hey, Brock, how many people are in the chat right now?
I don't know. 43.
43. Hey, let's do a giveaway.
Oh, you want to do a giveaway?
Let's do a giveaway. How about that? Hey, let's do. I need some kind of trivia. Who's got Marvel trivia? And then the first person to throw it up in the answer. Yeah. Anybody come up with that? I usually have like a book I could probably look up, but I can't find it.
Marvel trivia.
Marvel trivia.
Ooh.
Anything you can think of off the top of your head, but it's got to be hard to answer, and then we'll have a giveaway thing that I'm going to grab.
Who is Thanos' pet in the Thanos win storyline?
Oh, all right. I don't know the answer to that.
Who is Thanos' pet in the Thanos win storyline?
Let's see.
First answer wins.
Molecule Man, Final Boss Doom.
No.
Is that a net? No.
Incorrect.
Negative.
Serena says Death.
It is not Death. No, Death doesn't show up till the end of the comic to Blue Ball.
She's nobody's pet. She's nobody's
pet. Everybody's Googling.
Yeah.
Quick, everybody, Google. And then we're going to give away whatever is closest within my reach, which is going to be...
Oh, my gosh.
This. Here we go. It's not a custom or anything, so don't get excited, anybody.
Robotoast says... actually, we have a couple of Hulks. Hold on.
Whoever said Hulk first got it. It looks like Easy Customs by Eric.
Wait, Easy Customs said Hulk up here. So his was first. There's a bunch of people.
Easy Customs.
Easy Customs by Eric gets a...
Easy Customs. Do you happen to have a Scarlet Witch? Is that... No?
Bam.
No? Do you need one of those? Does he say good? If he already has one or doesn't want it, I can find something else for him.
It'll probably take a minute for it to upload.
We're still waiting for him. I think he's in shock that he won. Or
yay! Nobody was expecting a giveaway, right?
Yes.
They thought they were just going to come here and get trash talked.
He says yes. I don't know what that is.
Yes. Yes, good, or yes, you have it. Yes, you want it.
Yes,
give it to you. Talk to us. Talk to us, Easy Customs. You're making it hard for us.
Very difficult, Easy Customs. Very, very difficult.
Yes. Don't be shy.
Now he's got smiley faces.
Mike here. Damn it, Easy Customs.
He says he wants it. You're good.
Okay, good.
He says, I want it, dude.
Congratulations. Good job. Did you? And just out of curiosity, did you Google it or did you have the knowledge offhand? I gotta know if it was a Google off. I have a feeling that everybody was like us, all the Hulks poured in. Who thought they had it first? Can we go back up? Who thought they had it first?
Hold on.
Who's that? Who give me the second place too?
No, see,
second place.
You came in after Toys and Craft. He came in one after. Easy Custom said Hulk, Cobocop said Lag, and then Toys and Craft said Hulk.
So Toys and Crafts is second?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Keep talking. I'm gonna go pick something else out of the box.
Oh man,
you won too.
This is a big giveaway. We should have done this like 30 minutes ago. Nice job. Hey, it's the least that he can do for being number one, late, and number two, getting on and off the broadcast like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
But nice. He's a nice guy. By the way, he sent me a and by he I meant Justin. Justin sent me a whatchamacallit. Hold on a second. Oh, I got him on here. Nope, that's not it. He sent me a Lobo that I guess is fine because he's not reclaiming.
How we doing?
All right, Justin,
everybody good?
Go ahead.
All Toys. Do you got a Venom?
Oh wow.
Ooh.
Toys.
That's a dope figure too.
Let me know. I'm trying to just got box of rare shit all over the place. So stuff.
He said
stuff. Not swear?
It's okay. It's okay. That may actually help out the channel. This channel is for adults.
Oh, good.
Friendly. All right, cool. How can they? How can he get the 2 winners?
Oh, the 2 winners. Just either get in touch with anybody here, preferably me, because it's coming from me.
Hit him up on. Shout out your Instagram, player. It's your time. Shout out.
Oh, Mark Out Lab Creations Instagram. If you're not following me already, I mean, I don't even know why we're friends, but it's fine.
Yeah, what's up with that?
I'm not even your real dad. You can do what you want. I mean, I just don't understand. I do all these funny things. I had a mustache. I just, I'll be back in a minute.
And he used to be in Hawaii. Now he's in the proper states. He's in the proper states now. He's Hawaii. He used to be a Hawaiian, but now he's Hawaiian.
I used to be. Oh wait, yeah. Well, we have some questions for you from the Canada side. We want to know what you thought about the ketchup chips. I know, not to detract. We're already like what, an hour and 40 minutes in.
Yeah, this
ketchup chips, Brock. I want to know about them.
I've lost complete and utter control of this show, so we're going for it today. I told my wife I was going to be on less than an hour. It's an hour and 38 minutes after the fact. Let's
just real quick. I just have a quick question. So the people that were in the chat, was there a drop off when I asked you how many people were in there? Was there more at the beginning and then less when I asked you?
Let me see. There's 46 people in now. We're still good.
I'm just curious if anybody at the beginning was like, I'm out, and they're like, by the way, we're giving away stuff.
They usually come in and out. The beginning was kind of rough because one of our special guests was having some technical difficulties, but he's more than
they've got shit internet in Missouri. I hear it's fine.
It's terrible. But now you got good internet. I've
got the neighbor's internet. He's got good internet. I mean, I guess it keeps dropping in and out. So we both have bad internet.
All right, let's get back on task. Moving on. I think we've talked enough about that. I think we can comment on this. My main thing with this one is your left side looks different than your right side.
Yeah.
And that's it. And I think one way that I would remedy this, and I've done it, is that you just print out the emblem on your computer, find the size, make different sizes until you get the right size. You can measure it on the chest, and then you put it on the chest, and then you sculpt and use that to sculpt your figure. You guys have any other recommendations with that?
Yeah, exactly what you just said. Just printing off the logo that you want to use, just so that you have both a straight line and an even proportion. Because he's got a cool idea. I like the body that he's using to accomplish that. I think that's a really neat concept. But man, just the wonkiness of that bat logo on the middle really takes away from it. Because I know Bruce Wayne would not allow that kind of production to leave the Batcave.
Some of Bruce's earlier work, when he had like one of the low-end 3D printers. It's cool. No. I only need like 10 microns, Alfred.
So Justin, would you say that he should try to remedy this by cutting it down, or should he start over?
I would. Sorry, I was trying to find. Those the wings that come with the Build-A-Figure for the Batman. The Nightwing. Do you know who I'm talking about? Nightwing, the DC Nightwing. I think the Nightwing wings on that would be awesome. On the back of it, with painted red on the back, on the inside, and then black on the outside.
That would look good.
I was gonna show them. I don't. They're around here somewhere. Anyways, I to be honest, with that type of break in the line, I mean, if you're gonna do a custom and you really want to enjoy it, I think that you'll be constantly looking at that break, that it doesn't match, right? And this is another one of those things that I think that maybe he tried and got this image, and it's clear that it's not symmetrical, right? And I mean, you don't have to be a customizer to know that it's not symmetrical. He probably can see it, but that difference in it looks great. It's a great concept and a great idea. But it will always, I will always, if it's sat on my shelf, I'd constantly look at the imperfections in the bat symbol. So, I would sand it down and I would rebuild on top of it, because I mean, it's already custom on the chest. So the worst you can do is build more chest, right? And then I think that even those lines, you could go back in and fill it in with sculpt on top of it and make it more, and bring that line out naturally. And it's just such a minute thing that it would make all the difference in the world. So
yeah, it would. Any last?
And a head, of course, maybe a head.
Well, it's a work in progress.
Yeah,
I know.
All right, moving on to the next custom. Nope. All right, here we go.
Creed, Victor Creed.
I'll say I really like the use of that M'Baku cape for the Sabretooth.
Yep. You guys can come out here. Yeah, we're still out here. My wife just coming out and she's going.
2 hours?
Yeah, we're almost.
Did you have them locked away?
Yeah. They were.
Hi, Brock's wife.
Everybody's saying hi. Actually, just Mark iLab is saying hi.
I have a name, Brock.
Justin's saying hi.
You don't have to call me that, though. I don't want to tell everybody my name.
Lobo, the guy that sent me Lobo, says hi.
Yeah.
She says hi.
You're just gonna have to keep Lobo. That's my gift to you. But when we go to scan it, you're gonna have to give it back to me so we can scan it, and then you can have it back.
Awesome.
But it's yours. That's my gift to you for all the good stuff you do for the customizing world.
Dude, and it's an awesome piece. But come on, you gotta keep the original player. Maybe
No.
Give me a scan.
I don't keep original anything. But yeah, if I need the bike back, once we figure out a scanner situation, we'll scan it.
Awesome.
And you can have the bike
By
back,
the way,
and it'll be beautiful to display on your
I can
shelf.
pull that up, and you guys can see. I reviewed that Lobo, and since we're talking about hair, you use Procreate on that hair, obviously, and it looks money in the bank. Go take a look at that review.
I didn't.
Several months ago.
I didn't actually. So if we're talking about hair, if we're talking about hair, I'll tell you what I do. And it's going to make a lot of customizers angry, especially all the people that get mad when they see that I use pit pieces.
Oh,
Do you know what I use for most of my hair?
Please.
I scrap the hair off of a Gila head. So I have just buckets of Gilas over there.
What?
And I take all the hair off of Gila because I like the way her hair looks. So nice
those
pointed
are
lines.
Pieces from Gila?
Yep. And here and there, I
call her
take
Hella.
Hella. Sorry, I don't know why I said Gila.
Maybe
Hella.
maybe it was your Hawaiian coming out.
Yeah. Sure. Right. That's exactly what happened. But yeah, so I not always her. She has some of the best hair, and they actually have a lot of figures that came out recently. Girls that have the softer plastic, which is the only good thing about Hasbro's new weird plastic thing they've been doing with the hair, is that it's easier to cut and it's easier to bend. So I take like Weapon X, or what do you call her? X-23. Psylocke hair, anything that has like long flowing hair, I can trim off pieces and I'll just glue them into place. And so if you look at that Lobo head, it's actually pieces that are just glued into different ways, and I think probably some Aves as well.
Well, I'm in shock right now because the little strands that Lobo has, I thought I could have sworn it was Procreate. Wow. The more you knew. Yeah, I never knew. I never knew.
Yeah, I've only tried to use Procreate once, and it's after the Procreate sat in my bin for about a year, and it did that thing that you showed, and it would just, I couldn't get it to, I couldn't even peel the wrapper off the edge of it, so I scrapped it. I'll try it again later.
Well, you know, one of the things that Christina Conan told me that she does is she heats it up with a hair dryer or some form of heat. Yeah, not when it's mixed, pre-mixed. She'll heat up the individual, the white and the dark, and then she'll mix it. And sure enough, I tried that. I gave it a go, and it's a lot more malleable in the hand. Yeah. So tricks of the trade. I can't believe you didn't use Procreate. Never mind, guys. All right, well, let's talk about this custom right here. What do you guys, how do you, well, if you saw one of my most recent videos and I look back at it and I was going, what was I doing? I was sculpting some fur using milliput on something that I'm making, and I was doing that. I did an absolutely terrible job, and it was in front of the camera, and I was just going really fast. I wasn't even thinking about the shapes. That's not the way to do it. I think this is a similar thing, like the back of the hair that you just kind of like, you just went and you took a toothpick or whatever tool and you mashed it in, I think. I don't know what to tell you other than you got to work slower and don't do what I was doing on Instagram. So hopefully you didn't copy me, player. I may just take that down because it's a really bad example. But weigh in on this Weapon X.
Yeah, you know what? It's obviously really rough, but I mean, and I'll caution the guys in the comment section that everybody starts somewhere.
Yep.
Everybody's new at one point. It's really easy to just look at someone and say, "Oh, well, yeah, it looks like that." But it's a lot easier to jump in and give the guy a helpful suggestion so that he can take that next step rather than knock him back a few. I think in theory what he's going for, I like it, but he shouldn't be using the milliputty for sculpting hair.
Agreed.
If you want to get away with this now ingenious idea that Justin's just dropped on us, I think.
Yeah, but you're going to have to spend a lot of money just to cut up pieces of.
I was going to say, well, Justin, you're
Justin's got deep pockets.
A lot of money.
So if I can, let me just plug real quick. So I work with this caster right now. I'm trying to see if I can bring him up here. STC Forge. I can't share anything on the screen, but I work with him. So we're actually coming up with an idea to do flayed hair in that soft malleable plastic, so that and he's a spin caster, so basically he can think of like a bunch of heads on a ring and it spins out and prints off 20 at once, and we're going to do kind of like sheets where you can cut off different expressions of hair, you know what I mean, like flared, just it's hard to explain, but if anybody who's ever tried to cut hair from one of the figures to use it for hair for another figure, you know what I mean. And this will just be a bunch of different expression style hair that you can cut and trim, kind of like how the.
Oh, nobody's come out with that product. Maybe you shouldn't have said anything until you had that out, because there's literally nobody that's done casted hair pieces.
Listen. Absolutely, and if somebody can come up with the idea, it's fantastic, because I think the more that's in the market, the better, because our first foray into it may not work that well, but it's a really great idea, and it's a lot better than trying, like, for anybody that's tried to do hair, it's so much better to glue on hair to the face to make it look like a beard. It looks a lot more natural. It looks a lot more, just because the hair is already printed, so to speak. anyways, I'll bring it back to the Victor Creed. This looks like work that I've done before. So anybody that's like, oh, you shouldn't be sculpting because it doesn't look good. No, don't ever listen to anybody, because my original sculpt work looked like garbage. And I'm not saying this looks like garbage. I'm just saying when I first started, I had no idea what I was doing. And all it is just me fumbling through the steps. You can look at a YouTube video, but you don't know it until you put it in your hands. That's what she said. But for this, kind of stuff, I think that this is, to me, this looks like another one of those instances where the clay was put on, and it was tried to be pushed into place before the clay had set enough for you to get sharper lines out of. And a lot of people don't realize.
A good point. Yeah, that's a good point.
A lot of people don't realize that when they think about the clay, they think about it in two steps. It's either hard or soft, right? You can either work with it or it's dry. And there's so many different stages in all the different types of clay. So even Milliput has its own sweet spots. But for Aves, I love Aves. Hashtag Aves sponsorship. I love that I know the timeline. You know what I mean? I can mix up a batch. I can put it aside. I never mix up a batch and start working with it immediately. I mix up a batch and then I let it warm up. I put it off to the side. I do some other stuff and then I come back to it. And once it's kind of done its thing, then I'll start to work with it. And I know that, for the first 10 minutes, I'll have the ability to just block in mass and it looks terrible. And then, about 20 minutes in, I'll get kind of a firmer ability to kind of press images or press texture into it. I think that Venom that I posted earlier, it was like minutes after I had just put the clay on, and it hadn't been, the teeth hadn't been pointed yet. And so a lot of them looked sloppy and kind of not like teeth. But as they got to the end of the curing stage, I could go in with my fingers and barely touch them. And I could point all the teeth and I could move them up. I could move them down. I could take a sharp tool and kind of position them into place. And they were almost dry at that point, but you can still get some workability out of it. And as long as you do it before the clay cures all the way, you get some really good finish and technique. And so this is the type of thing. So for one, I want to applaud, like you said, I like what he did with the figure. I like the M'Baku cape. I like that he saw the use of the cottonmouth head. I've seen a couple people, I think 978 did a Venom where it encased his face and teeth by using the lines that were naturally existing in the face mask. And so what he did here was great, because I don't think of there being a snake mask underneath that. I like the fact that he kind of has already kind of a feral look to him. So it's a good use of the existing body and the existing face. Like there's no other, it's not like he, matched it onto a different body. He used the existing buck to do what he did here. So while the sculpt work on the face and the hair, it could use some work. I think it's a good idea, but sculpting hair sucks. So.
Well, and the only way he's going to get better at it is more experience. The more of these customs that he does,
the more you fail.
Get. Yep. Yeah, and if you ain't trying, you ain't going to win. And if you're not really losing, right? You're just gaining experience. Hopefully, having a show like Critique My Customs, you get a chance to hear from more experienced guys on whatever type of custom, a technique, or whatever. And then you can learn by wisdom rather than by experience. Experience is always going to be harder. It's going to be more expensive. Yeah. And what you were saying about Aves, it makes so much sense, because when I first started using Aves, I was like, oh, I wanted to, right after I rolled it, I started using it. And that's not the appropriate time. 10
it's like work with mashed potatoes, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's too, it's too malleable. It's too, it moves too easy.
Exactly. It has its uses. Like if you're trying to do a huge piece, you're trying to block in a lot of area at once, you definitely want to do it right off the bat, because then you can get some big pieces in that don't need definition. They don't need shape. You're just trying to block in like musculature. Like if you're just trying to block in some pecs, you put in the base and then you come back later and then you can like push it into place. You know what I mean? Like you don't have to do defined details right off the bat. I think everybody, they jump on that. So sorry.
All right. So let me see. So Justin, which one was yours? Justin, he says, I appreciate you guys featuring my work in progress. I actually had to clean up the scope with an X-Acto knife, and I did eventually add more layers of scope. Which one was yours, Justin?
Justin Brown. Let's go look here. What did we do? We did 2 head sculpts last, and we did Sabretooth and.
Yeah, so it's going to be. Let's see what he says.
It's really confusing, Justin, because my name's Justin. Justin, don't do that, Justin.
Justin Brown.
Hey,
so
Justin, I'm also Brown. Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. This show's completely out of control and it's my fault. I know. I'm going to open it up to the chat for the, it's okay. We were going to make that much money. Anyways, pennies on the dollar, player. Pennies on the dollar. Okay, so his was the Nightcrawler and Sabretooth. So there you go. You're getting experience. Perfect.
That's interesting. That's good to know because those were both the ones we talked about, wasn't it?
Yep.
Like they were both in that line. Okay, so I recommend you don't use Milliput. I think Milliput has its uses. I think everybody goes to Milliput because it's available. Right? Like you can get it locally. Procreate. Just go to Amazon. Everybody goes to the Hobby Lobby and they're like, oh, I can find it at the Hobby Lobby, so I'll buy it here. Go online.
Hold that up again, so people can see what we're talking about. Where'd you get Procreate from?
Well, I'm in Canada, so probably not the best resource to use for where I got it. But
it was hard for me to find Procreate. I bought it on eBay, and I had to get 2 different. And then there was a different type. I'll have to show you guys off screen. But the one that you want is the one that comes in 2 parts. Make sure before you're buying it, if you're buying on eBay, that you get 2 parts on it.
Yeah, mine.
Did you get yours from Canadian Tire?
Canadian Tire.
No, I went to Canadian Tire to look for that kind of stuff, and the only kind of sealant or clay stuff that they had was actually it was a water sealant for sealing tires in Canadian winters. So
for everybody that doesn't know, Canadian Tire just doesn't sell tires. It's like a Walmart.
Yeah. Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, how about that?
When people hear it, they're like, "Oh, like tires?" And they're like, "No, it's like a store. It's like a giant store."
Yeah, like they sell camping stuff, they sell household appliances, they sell paint, they even sell airbrush stuff. It's crazy.
Brock, we're going to Canada to visit Ryan.
I'm gonna put up the chat questions on there so you guys answer them as you see fit.
I'm ready. Hey, by the way, I picked up this off of Amazon.
Hold on
I'm
a second.
curious.
Let me bring you up.
If you guys haven't tried this, I haven't tried it yet. So if anybody,
Needle Knight,
this is another one. It's a so green stuff. This is a red and blue, but it comes in a strip. So I was curious to try because it's pre-mixed, so I can just slice it, and you don't have to worry about. But with Aves, you got to measure, right? You got to weigh it or you got to eyeball it. I usually eyeball it, but this is nice. It comes in a strip, so it tells you exactly how much to mix.
How much was that?
No, it was like $13 or something. Okay. I don't know.
What's up,
Bart? It wasn't very expensive. Okay, question. Sorry.
So Procreate does turn rubbery, depending on how you mix the parts. What is it? You mix more of the white or more of the black to get it softer?
Let's look here.
There's actually a mixture. There's when you get Procreate, there's the black. They give you the breakdown actually in the instructions.
Mine doesn't say dark or white. Which one goes softer? It just gives the cure time.
Yeah, the resin.
You got some of that black Van Procreate.
The hardener is the black stuff. If you want it to be softer, it suggests 40% resin, 60% hardener, so 40 white, 60 black.
So the hardener is the white part.
Yeah. The hardener is the black. Sorry.
Oh, the hardener is the black. Okay.
Yeah, the white is the resin.
Symbiote. Jamie said green stuff. I see. Jamie, by the way, Symbiote Seeker is one of my favorites. If anybody's not already watching what he does, go see what he does with green stuff, because green stuff again has kind of that same. You can do some mediation to the recipe for the texture, and you can get stuff that is more flexible, so people can use it like Procreate, but it also has textures where you can get a hardened surface more like Aves. So you just got to add more or less, but you still get some bendability out of it. So
Ryan, I think this one's for you. Anyone know of any store that sells Procreate in Toronto? I know you're not in Toronto, but
yeah, Toronto. Procreate, your best bet is probably a trip to Amazon. Honestly, that's where I got lucky and found it. I don't know of any stores that actually carry it. I know Michael's does not carry it. I know in Calgary, there are some model stores and some train stores that oddly carry some of this stuff. So they might be something to check out. But as far as Toronto goes, I think I'm closer to California than I am Toronto. So
Yeah, Toronto's by New York.
Yeah, well on the east side or east-ish of Canada.
So Odd Toys and Craft says, oh wait, this is not, I'm sorry, this is the wrong one. Hold on. Oh,
I
here
like
we
the
go.
neat green stuff.
Kobocop, I'll bring that one up in a second. Kobocop says there's another clay that cures like rubber. There's a lady on the YouTube channel that customizes My Little Ponies. My question to you, sir, is why you
am I a brony? I am a brony.
Oh no, man. Oh no. Let's say it was for the kids. So do you know her name, or and send me the link because I'm interested. I can't find the Procreate or the green stuff here locally, so I have to outsource it.
I think I might know what videos he's talking about at some point in trying to look at videos for all of this stuff. I remember seeing a video of someone working on, I don't know if it was My Little Ponies, but
right.
Well, my head is strategically placed to block all of my posters, but
yeah.
Hey, Brock, do you ever when you do your This Week in Customs or Critique My Customs, sorry, probably This Week in Customs, do you ever put the links up? Do you ever add links to your stuff?
Like,
because that would probably be a good way. I mean, it would be great. Usually, you can add links. I don't know how to do that stuff. I'm just saying it would be great.
Like to Amazon, like what's like
what
stuff that I haven't
maybe
done
we'll
that
come up
yet.
with some like shortcuts. We'll come up with some shortcuts for people and try to put
that's
them
a good
together.
idea. I've actually thought about doing that. My buddy Tech Chucker started doing that. I gotta do it. Hold on, let me see. I gotta bring.
Nice.
Any other questions, guys?
Does Milliput come in different textures? I believe it does.
Well, they come in different. To my knowledge, they come in yellow, white, and black, and ultra white. Yeah. And in my experience, the colors themselves have different textures and different finishes. So I used to use the yellow all the time, and then I used the white, and I hated the white.
And what's the difference? What was the difference in the texture?
It was just a different viscosity, had a different kind of cure time, a different texture. Once you get used to a certain type, like Aves right now, it's the same thing. I ordered an ultra white, and I usually use the gray, just because it's a more neutral color. But I ordered the ultra white, and I thought it would be the same, and it feels like a different. It adds like 2 minutes here, and it cures 2 minutes faster here, and it's just it threw me off enough that I messed up enough batches to say I'll never do it again. So it's not that it comes in different finishes; it's that each color has like a different
feel different in your hands. Yeah,
exactly. So,
all right. The next question is regarding airbrush. I would tell you that it depends how many customs you're doing, and are you really going to use the airbrush? So, I don't do that many customs, although I've been doing it for a few years now. I just don't do as many as these guys. These guys output a lot. They take commissions. I don't do any of that. So I take my sweet time. So when I started deciding, well, do I really need an airbrush? Well, I bought myself the cheapest one I could find, and I used it and I loved it. And then I bought myself something a little bit more expensive. I got myself a Badger Chrome, and I say it's an absolute, I love using the airbrush. It makes me a better painter than I truly am.
Yep.
It makes everything smooth, and the more you use it, the more control. The more I've been using it, the more control I have of it, so I can actually paint better details. I do shading, highlights, all sorts of things, even adding washes. I could use the airbrush for. So I would tell you is you have to ask yourself the question: are you really customizing that much? Are you good with a hand brush already? If you paint with a hand brush? Then go and get yourself an airbrush. Coblecop says he has girls in reference to the My Little Ponies. Okay, Blair. Okay.
Hey, in answer to the airbrush thing, I own an airbrush and I've never used it.
Wow. Okay.
Really? And it's only because this is gonna be. I might have touched on this before in a past video, but I actually haven't been painting for a long time, and so the he does have an awesome mustache.
Yes.
Whoever said this?
It was me. I put it as my banner. It's my own banner, Player.
All right, I take it back. Whatever. It is a good mustache, though. I agree with Brock. I saw it like this. So when I learned as I was learning how to paint, when I got into customizing, I knew how to sculpt kind of, but painting terrified me. And so painting was a learning process. But as I learned how to paint, I'm not comfortable yet I'm not comfortable yet learning about an airbrush, because I feel like there's still so much for me to learn as a dry brush artist, and I really enjoy dry brushing. I really enjoy using like a traditional brush and getting that done. But is it mandatory for? I don't know if it's mandatory, but it has its perks and its caveats. Like you can, again, you get more coverage and you can do way cooler shadows and lines, but also I think it really depends on your style, like wherever you feel comfortable. Like I love using a brush. I love watching stuff like appear in front of me as I'm painting with a brush, real Bob Ross style. I have a wig and everything. Let's not get into it. The point is, I love to brush, and so the idea of using an airbrush sounds exciting, and I'm pretty sure it'll have its uses. But again, I see some artists use airbrush just specifically, and that's the only thing they do. And I always know airbrush versus like a hand brush technique.
Yeah.
So again, it's really just like there's no good or positive or negative to it. It's like if you find a sweet spot and you want to use an airbrush, use an airbrush. And if you want to use an airbrush and a brush, there's no rules. Just find a sweet spot that works for you. And I'm excited to finally use an airbrush whenever I get there, but I feel like there's still hills for me to climb to be able to, call myself a good painter. I'm definitely not the best painter. So,
Ryan, why don't you weigh in on that?
I love the airbrushing. I think it's really efficient. I have some slight hand tremors sometimes, so having the ability to, not have to rely on having a brush in my hand and hold it steady that's a tremendous asset for me. But I really enjoy it. I think it's a lot of fun. I think in terms of the finish to the figure, it just, for me, again, if I'm going to paint one by hand and I'm going to paint it with an airbrush, if I was to hold the two figures beside each other, I'm going to be able to tell the difference. And the style that I like to do, I like to kind of make it look like it came right off the factory line. I know some guys like to go hyper detail. Some guys like to go minimalist. I collect Hasbro Legends. That's the reason why I got into customizing. So I want them to look like the other ones that I've got on my shelf. Every now and then I'll throw way too much detail onto one, and I enjoy it and it looks good, but in the grand scheme,
feels wrong.
Yeah, it feels wrong.
Yeah, it feels wrong.
Especially looking next to all the $20 stuff that I've got from Hasbro. So,
like what you just said. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What you just said is the best part about customizing, is that your style. The reason I follow your stuff, the reason like you and I are friends in the digital world, is because your style is different from mine. Not because it's something that I can do. Like I don't look at your stuff and go, oh, I can do that. Let's give him a follow. I look at it because you are unique. Like because of the choices that you make in your paint brushes, your airbrush. Like the style that you choose for makes you unique as an artist. It's exciting to follow. So sorry, please continue. I didn't mean to interrupt.
I think that's a great point. There's when you look at it this week in customs and you see all the different artists and different levels of customizing skills, you can see what they bend towards more. Especially if you've been doing it for a while, you can tell, well, that guy definitely he's in more gritty. All his stuff looks like gritty, and like even the photos, like for example, Justin, that's what I see. Like look, and then seeing it in hand, I can see it's like, I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to describe
the presentation. The presentation is specific to a style.
It's just so like gritty. The line.
Thank you.
It's not going to be like. It's not going to be like I'm trying to think of like a Face Customs or a
New Collector Customs.
DF,
Seth Allen.
DF action figures. Like you can tell, like they have a completely separate style, but they're both art. In my book, they're both art, and you can see the different talents coming out. And I like, for me, when I go and I paint a figure, like I have a completely separate approach than what Ryan does. I don't want mine to look like your standard basic Marvel Legends. I want them to have the details, the realism, and that's what I bent more for. Yeah, go ahead.
And for every person that's in the chat right now, for any customizer out there that kind of sits on that cusp of wondering, like when they build something, is it something that other people have? And you got to remember, like collectors they collect everything. Like even as a Spider-Man collector, I've collected all the Spider-Man stuff, and there's so many gaps, there's so many in-betweens, there's so many things that you could fill, and you could take 10 different artists who do 10 different things, and they could provide 10 different new Spider-Mans. And I think that's the best part about the customizing world, is that there's no, like, there's all these awesome gray areas where, you know, like a customizer can step up and do a style that's like Weapon X. Like, his style is Weapon X style, right? Like, I like that it's that style, and that's what makes the piece worth keeping, or worth collecting, or customizing, or adding to your collection, is that it fills a gap that otherwise would be, you know, Hasbro does a great job. Like, the reason we're all here is because we collected toys to begin with, but we're all here because, you know, there's this other medium, there's this in between where people can kind of touch on that artistic base and provide something that doesn't exist, right? And that's the stuff. Like, I work with a guy right now that it has everything, and the fact that I can provide something that doesn't exist, like the in-betweens where you were saying, Brock, earlier about custom concept art, like stuff that doesn't exist, and you find it and like somebody makes it, and it's just some dude's drawing on the side. Like,
yeah,
that's
pretty awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, and somebody brings it like 978 pounds right now is doing that Ninja Turtle Spider-Man, and it's actually based upon a cosplayer that dressed as Ninja Turtle Spider-Man, right? Like,
that's cool.
As like a Leonardo. Yeah, and it's just based on a guy's costume who also went outside of the box. So, yeah, I can't even remember how I got here. Sorry.
Well,
that's okay. Ryan, go for it.
The biggest piece of advice that I'll offer customizers, and it's probably the one comment that I give people the most, is please, 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 please do not compare your work. Every artist is going to look different. There's so many people that will message me and they'll say, you know, Weapon X, what do you use? What materials, what supplies? And they're almost asking from the perspective that they're saying, hey, you know what? If I have the tools that you have, I'm going to do what you do. And it doesn't translate that way. And that's why I always tell people, they'll ask me what paints to buy. And I say, buy one of each, find out which one you like, because, you know, I know you guys like Vallejo. I would rather throw it at the wall and watch the bottle get destroyed. But again, that's artist preference. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. It's just, I didn't like it.
What paint do you use?
I use Citadel and Tamiya. I really like Tamiya just because I've got some colorblind issues. And so just the basic colors, that really works for Ryan. And then with Citadel, I like that if there's not the color that I'm looking for, like they do really great skin tones.
Citadel does in-between colors really well.
Yeah, like the in-between colors, and that's why I like the Tamiya and the Citadels, because they both specialize in something that the other does not even bother to touch on. Because you'll never go and look for a Citadel and find a Citadel red. You'll find blood red, ogre red, your wife when she sees your Hasbro bill red, like that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's why I like those two brands. But I always try to tell people when they come to me for questions like that, it's try everything. Watch every video that's available to you. Look at every customizer, because everybody's going to have a different style. But please, 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 please don't sit there and say, well, mine sucks because Mark High Lab
it's not yours.
Look like this and mine doesn't look like that. Yours isn't supposed to look like that. It's supposed to look however you want it to look. And if you're new, you're new. But you know, everybody started somewhere. You're going to get there, but just don't get discouraged because you're not pumping out, you know, Mark High Lab Creations quality stuff from day one. Because
exactly
nonsense.
Because
look at my old stuff. Awesome.
Well, and that's what I've been trying to, and that's what I try to get off across on the, you know, This Week in Customs, or whenever I go live or whatever I'm doing customs. You're unless you're a trained artist, and I'm talking about when you back in like early like grammar school, you learn the color wheel, then you have an art, and then you progress and you know how to draw and paint and all that stuff. You were trained in school. You're not going to jump into this and all of a sudden your work is going to be a magnificent, you know, piece. You're just going to have to work. This isn't going to be, you're not going to, this isn't fast food. You know, people I see a lot of people asking customizers when they post stuff, hey, what about this? What about that? And they just ask questions and questions and questions. And I've noticed some of the people are the same person asking over and over again, but I never see them put out any work.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking, well, how in the world are you ever going to improve? It's good to ask questions. It's good to do your research. It's good to do your due diligence. But man, get after it and actually put your hand to the figure, kit bash, do a repaint, etc. Let me see. Any other questions on here? How can I make a beard with that material to a soft plastic figure like a DC, like a Mego style?
I think what he's asking about is how to do beards similar to how Justin was talking about, where you're cutting the pieces off and gluing them on. And I don't know that that would be the best route to go for a beard.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
I know some people don't like using Milliput for facial hair or for hair in general. I think for beards and stuff, I've gotten away with it. I've used Milliput for beards in the past. I've gotten really positive feedback on it. People have liked it. It can be done, but yeah, I think from the perspective that he's asking about gluing the pieces onto the face, which I don't think that's practical or going to look good in the end.
It's tough because like when you take hair from a character that has hair and you're applying it as hair, like long strands of a certain length, medium length, long length, like Noboo has a certain style, and you try to use the hair as a beard hair doesn't look like hair. You know what I mean? Like beard hair is small, it's scraggly, it's, you know, short, it's trimmed. It's so in order to get that look, you can't really take normal hair and try to get that same look, because you'll get these long, unless you're doing like an Odin or Boar or some type of Valkyrie with a beard. I meant Valhalla Asgardian. You know what I meant. You know what I meant. It's not a bearded woman Asgardian. Like Hela.
There it is, helium again.
Well, people are asking about the hair and how it applies. Hopefully people can see this, but this is just it's a Legion.
I'll bring you back up.
Oh, dude, I love this piece.
That's a Legion I'm working on. Obviously, just had a baby. I haven't been able to work on it much, but like you see here on the back, I literally just made him an egghead so that I could glue the pieces to the side and support them that way. But every single one of those strands is individually sculpted. I let it sit on the side and dry. I bent them to shapes that I wanted them to, and then literally just glued them into place.
Is that Aves?
That is Procreate.
No, it's Procreate.
That is Procreate. Okay.
This stuff underneath, that's Milliput. I did the cone head with Milliput and then sculpted the hair with Procreate.
Okay, so on that though, is that a mixture that you're able to show any kind of bend to? I'm just curious. You don't have to. I'm just curious if you can. Yeah, see? Look, ladies and gentlemen. That's what you do with Procreate. You cannot do that with Aves once it's cured.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Snap off.
Yeah, so, and that's, like, I've done pretty good tests on it just because I get a lot of people that ask about the durability of it. So I'm pretty tall. I dropped it on the floor, threw it at the wall, and it maintained shape. So I'm really happy with Procreate.
Now, I noticed like an artist like Christina Conan, where she does her hair, there'll be lines. If you look at a comic book, that's how the artists draw the hair. How do you get those lines in there?
Well, see, and I look at the Christina Conans, the Micah Del Paz. I look at theirs to try and say, like, that's what I want mine to look like. How do I get that hair? So I noticed they do those lines in the middle. I used to try and sculpt the hair on the head. That was my biggest mistake because I'm still learning. And it was only very recently that I learned that, you know, you sculpt the hair separately, you bend it into shape, and you can do all the detail lines and stuff like that. So I literally just take that little tool there and just draw the lines. Sometimes I'll press them into shape with this just to get some smaller, more textured lines. But
hold on, let me bring you a full screen. Can you show that previous tool?
So it's almost kind of like a butter knife.
I got one of those.
And I bought a set like this, came with like 4 or 5 of these. They're double-edged, but they're fantastic tools for sculpting with. The ones I use the most would be these two. So the rubber tip and the dental tool. Oh,
you do a white rubber tip, huh? Is that a soft rubber tip?
Yeah, that's
just curious.
I think it's rubber, I want to say.
Well, I found that, so one that I use, just to piggyback off that, same kind of idea. I use a rubber tip, but there's different textures, there's different bends.
Okay, yeah.
So I use it.
I've got, it was like a pack that came with like 9.
Oh no.
Yeah. So I've got white ones, and it feels like the white ones have like a softer texture. Yeah. So these blue ones, I think those are.
Yeah, that came in a pack, correct?
Yeah.
You can get that on Amazon.
Michael's, yeah, Amazon too.
But anybody that orders them, I recommend get a couple different ones, because you're going to find that, like this one, I use this one religiously. It's my straight edge. And this is, you'll see it's like, it's covered in stuff. And then this one's, you know, never been used.
Yeah.
Right. So I think each one, like, they come with a bunch of different shapes, but I've never used some of these shapes because they just don't make any sense. But I think everybody has their go-to. But like, there's stiffer and softer silicone So I recommend, like, when people go to find tools, and again, people ask me a lot of times, like, what do you use for your sculpting? Like, just get, dude, you could use anything that works. Just go, you know, it sounds stupid, but buy a bunch of different tools and then find out what works best for you.
Symbiote Seeker says you can also use the back of a paintbrush. It could work too, depending on the shape of your paintbrush. You can definitely use the back of it.
One guy. Says,
so like a.
Oh, go ahead, Justin.
Back of a paintbrush. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Back of a paintbrush. I was just showing. That's what he meant. Paintbrush. So the rounded edge of a paintbrush gives you a, like a rounded edge to work with. Sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
No, one of the guys was asking above. He said, I think hair is going to be a multi-day thing. So just to give you an example, this tedious piece of work right here, the grizzly that I did.
Yeah.
That was about 4 different sculpt sessions. So I rolled out some putty. I did some hair, and I looked at what I had, and I thought, well, that's got to be enough. It wasn't, and that process repeated itself 3 times. So, yeah, it's definitely going to take a couple days, but it should take a couple days, because if you're doing it right, you want to make sure that the detail's there. The one thing that I learned from this custom, and I was able to get away with it just because the head sculpt that I chose, the hair is able to look a little bit more wild. But planning out the way that the hair is going to look, planning out the strands, planning out all of that kind of stuff, because again, that one was just kind of wildly thrown together, put hair where it fits. But yeah, just understand that it's going to be a long process.
And then I think what you were saying was that, like, you didn't, like, when you were doing it, you probably didn't, you had an idea how you were going to apply the hair, but not how it was going to not how it was going to look in the end result,
exactly.
right?
I was literally just sculpting hair, and it'd be, well, this one should, have 2 bends as opposed to 3, or this one will be detailed, or,
or
this
you have an extra space here. Yeah,
exactly. And that's what it became, was I need to fill this, what would look good there. So
and you got to remember, and if there's a lot of guys that are saying that they're going to go buy Procreate. Procreate should be sponsoring all of us right now, because we're talking, except for Justin, because he cuts hair.
I would give Procreate a chance. I'm not against it. I haven't got a chance yet.
One of the things that I've learned with Procreate, at least this has been my experience. You take a normal size ball, like the size of let's say a dime or a penny, and you think that you're going to have enough time to work and do the hair, what he was doing, you have to work super fast, because
it's like a rubber.
Yeah.
It's like a rubber finish,
and the longer you wait, and so you're working on one piece, and you're spending time on one piece, while the rest of the ball is going pretty much rubber, and it's going to rubberize to the point where you cannot move it. So I've wasted a ton of Procreate doing that.
I think I told you, Brock, when you're asking about the Procreate, that I told you that every day after I use it, my hands hurt, just because I'll do a strand of hair, and then it's, oh crap, I've got to, okay, here we go again.
I had someone, I haven't tried this yet, but somebody told me that they use water with ice cubes in it, and whenever they're using it'll slow the cure time for whatever putty they're using.
I've heard that too. Yep.
But I haven't tried it yet, so you may want to give that a go.
I don't know if it like slows it enough though, right? Like it's just, I've seen that before, but you got to hold it underwater, and then you're dealing with a wet Procreate. So like it does retard the curation process, but it doesn't do it in a way that is beneficial to whatever you're doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I think they were just saying putty in general, not necessarily just Procreate. So if you're working with Aves, maybe you should try it. I know that using rubbing alcohol has at least worked out better for me, manipulating the putty. But you may want to try. I think I will give it a test, and then see if I have good results, I'll post it either way.
Sweet.
All
right. Well, I think it's time to end this, because we've been.
Is that it?
Yeah, bro.
2 hours and 23 minutes.
Dude, this is supposed to be a 30-minute show, not. I told my wife 1 hour. Well, I want to thank both Ryan and Justin for coming on the program and sharing their wisdom with the rest of us, and hopefully it was hugely beneficial. You can follow Justin at Markai Lab Creations. That's K with a K, Creations with a K, and then Weapon X Customs, as you see right there on Instagram. And by the way, Weapon X is currently running a contest that is about to end. It was October 1st or
tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow
morning.
I'm actually going
Tomorrow's
after
the
this
first
to start writing all the lists or writing all the names into the list, which is going to take me forever.
Oh, see, we got to. I'll show you how. There was an easier way, but
Okay.
but
next
also
time.
so in addition to that, we also have
Collector Christmas.
Collector Christmas going on. So and anybody's watching that doesn't already follow us, we're doing Collector Christmas. A bunch of good artists getting on board. All you got to do is donate a already wrapped, or not a wrapped toy, but a sealed toy to a charitable organization, Toys for Tots. Almost every fire station near you will have a bin in front. All you got to do is take a picture of yourself donating a toy, 10 toys. We don't care. Just send somebody toys this Christmas who doesn't get toys, and a bunch of cool custom artists, not just one artist, but multiple artists are contributing. So if you guys are watching, it's a great way. And all you got to do is donate a toy. I mean, some people it's like.
So what the plan is, and we'll see if this is the way that Ryan wants to go with it, but we'll do a live show, and we'll bring on the customizers and their custom, what's going to be going on the giveaway, to encourage folks to pretty much donate to kids that don't have as much as we all do.
If you don't need more incentive to donate to needy children, we're gonna give you stuff.
You're gonna get a lot of cool
Think of the
stuff.
children. I think anybody who doesn't have kids.
I think for the North American side, we've got 8 or 9 different customizers now. So whoever wins in North America is going to get 9 free customs or 3D printed set pieces from a bunch of different really talented artists and me.
Yeah, and really all you got to do is
nice.
X, you come on now. You sell yourself short.
All right. Well, that's the end for the broadcast. Stay tuned for more This Week in Customs coming later this week. And then I think the week after that, because the third quarter is ending, we'll have a championship for whoever's going to be going up against Board Dad, the third quarter winner, whoever you guys pick. And then
probably going to be Board Dad.
Good luck going up against Board Dad.
Yeah.
It's going to be Board Dad against Board Dad versus Board Dad.
Well, he went up against
Board Dad.
He went up against himself. The Ghost Rider won out. I preferred his Hulkbuster Punisher or whatever we call that thing. But anyways,
if I can, just real quick.
Go for it, Justin.
With Board Dad, so Board Dad is an excellent opportunity for anybody that's doing custom work. Check out what Board Dad does. Brian does. He does a presentation. Like he gives you like a whole package. You get a custom piece. You get photoshopped work. His pieces are just so perfectly put together. Not only that, but they're presented in a way that's just like, he's like, oh, I'm just Bored Dad. I'm putting stuff together, but it looks like he had a marketing team. Photoshop him something and put it together, and that kind of stuff. Like a lot of people say, well, Photoshop is half the. If you're artistic in Photoshop and you can present your custom in a way that looks good and present the original product, use Photoshop. Make it look good. Use all your artistic talents. There are no caps to like how you present your art, and a lot of people say custom work should just be action figures and that's it.
Maybe we will have a future episode here where we'll get people from differing opinions discuss. I think that would be a good discussion.
I think it'd be a great discussion. Absolutely. I think a lot of people have different opinions about
I already know
what
who
makes a custom.
I already know, player. You're in for the show. All right, guys. Well, we're going to end the broadcast here, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Later, guys. Thank you.
Peace. That's my thumb. Oh, my gosh.